So at one point, though, he was not allowed around kids. So that's alarming. That should be like, I would never talk to that person again. But Flacco is having a buddy conversation, a very enjoyable conversation. And so this is the reason that sassy Josh is calling Flacco out, because Flacco, that was completely inappropriate when he did. And now he's sitting on No Jumper, representing No Jumper as an ally to an alleged pedophile. So let's get back to this
Alleged pedophile
news situation. I want to see a little bit more of this. So this is when Sharp Rob pulls out his phone and like shows Flacco's post that he made about Lil Boom trying to make song on radio. And saying, what the fuck is this? Flacco, you fucking fat fucking son of a bitch. And Remo calls in. Or wait, no, Sharp calls Remo, and Remo says, man, Flacco, you was defending Lil Boom, man. I don't know what to say about you, little fucking weird ass, man. You a bitch, man. I gotta go. And so he answers the phone, and Flacco was like, wait though, Harry, so look. I saw that's a sexual offense. What's this post about? Huh? What's this post right here about? That's not a sexual offense. Right. Touching a girl on her ass twice. You defending Boom. You made a post. On your post, you said, after reviewing the documents, video evidence exonerated Lil Boom and proves he never touched anyone at the store. And that's a post made on your page. Sure. They said the hashtag Lil Boom is this. Yeah, right. How you make that post and you never seen the video, Flacco? Top of the top, I'm trying to tell you guys, right? I said, we're reviewing the documents, right? Yeah. I'm trying to explain, right? So look. So reviewing the actual documents, right? Now,
it's gonna be kind of my third, but not fully. It's not a full. It's not a full. How many hours are in 3 days? 72. It's not a full 72 hours yet, but it's about to be, I think. Hold on.
Sharp acting like a total fucking tough guy. I thought this was very funny, so I decided to
There, I got it.
little girl was trying to get the fuck away from him. He spotted him through the store like, hey, like, who does that, bro? I wish all of them was my kids and I would have just caught him coming around the corner like, what? It's crazy. Nigga look like Skeeter from Doug. You know, I knocked your bitch ass out, nigga. Walking around with kids like that, nigga. Let's go to the last page, Josh. Could you imagine coming around the corner and seeing Sharp?
I want to chop it so bad.
Sharp's extra tough, but what he's going to do now is I think he's going to throw Flacco under the bus and start bringing up Flacco's lawsuits that he allegedly has out on it. I thought this was funny. So Sharp is subbing Flacco to his face. This is something different. Watch this. I'm going to just say I've heard about niggas fighting lawsuits and all types of shit. Ain't gonna say names, I just know what I know. There's some shit that's, hey, homie, there's some shit that's unraveling. All we gotta do is just sit back, grab a popcorn, and watch. Wait, who's doing it? Don't worry about it. You know what we gotta do is sit back, grab the popcorn, and watch, man. Wow, so I think Sharp is talking about Flacco, and I'm gonna explain later. But I do think that he's talking about Flacco and his lawsuits allegedly. So that's pretty incredible. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But for this next clip, this is going to be Flacco trying to
The cat just
paint
keeps
the
passing
narrative.
by a lot.
And this is literally fucking
The
insane.
bathroom.
So what he's trying to do is he's trying to say, like, sure, he did touch a little girl. That's been acknowledged. But where did he touch the little girl? And was it that inappropriate at the location that he touched her? He's basically trying to find a way for Little Boom to not have done anything wrong. This is insane. He's getting away with it. People are allowing him to get away with this.
Stop bullshitting.
His career is booming right now. Okay? So this is Naquan. Bro, stop capping. You want to come on here and hold rappers accountable, but not your people. Flacco with the
big
chop up there.
I gotta be big spoon though. You can be little spoon.
I cap it. Listen.
No, kids, don't do it on the floor. You better not.
Where did he touch him? You're debating that.
I'm big spoon. You're little spoon.
That's fucking weird as fuck. Yeah. You see how Flacco is like.
Well, my cat's not a healthy weight. He's kind of fat. I don't know. I think he's just like a small tabby. That's why. Is your cat a tabby?
It was on her behind. On her butt. Wait though, right?
Nothing watching TV.
This not the hill to die on, Flacco. I'm telling you right now, as a brother. Same thing that y'all agree with, right? Which is, it looks bad, but I can't say that he touched the girl and on her ass.
Which is in Mexico, but I'm technically American.
Right, no.
No, I am American. All things just be. I don't like my nose.
And I it was really important to show you guys what's been going on because he's getting
My
away
way.
with it, as I've said, and I really don't think I think people.
No, just eat an ice cream.
You know what I mean? Like you guys can let him get away with it, whatever. But at least you know about what's been going
I'm
on.
gonna turn around and watch the
Sort of
TV
like
from the
in
mirror
the same
instead.
way that we know about the 16s allegations and stuff like that. And honorable mention, really quick, I want to cover this. Someone in the chat mentions
I
this
have also
exact thing, and
oh,
Sharp
what the heck,
responds on behalf of the 16 and goes to bat
That's
for him.
weird.
It says
Are
there
you a
ain't
guy
no
or a
fucking
girl?
video on the 16.
I got a
Full
phone.
allegations. This shit is
I
real.
hate
And
that
I'm like,
song.
no, that's cool. I had the same energy with Adam. Nigga, Adam don't got no paperwork. Adam don't got none of the shit, that little Boom and all these other niggas.
No
got
video
covered, no
footage,
video footages of this shit. Like where it's unfucking deniable, bro. That shit was just speculation. This shit is real. This shit really
No.
happened, bro. It's
Wow, so Sharp
I put
acknowledges
this here
that
for
the
you
16
guys.
has allegations and
If
that
I
he
take
works
it off,
for
I
an
bet you
accused
leave
pedophilic,
probably because you get
predator.
like bored twice as fast.
Of course, alleged.
Stop
By the way,
it.
we have no
Stop
way
clowning
to
my
know for
beard.
sure. But he does work for someone who is widely known as someone who has allegations similar to the
I
little
put
Boom
it there
allegations.
just for
However,
you.
Sharp says that there's
And
not
you're
sufficient
clowning
enough
my
evidence like 4K video or like proven documents or something. I mean, so
Yeah,
Sharp
do
is
have
actually being called
Instagram.
out, and his frustration really shows that, you know, he's
Yeah.
very frustrated that he
Your roommate?
constantly gets
Oh my God.
fucking called out for working for Adam.
Yeah,
It's really
she-
funny. So after
Really?
facing all the backlash, Flacco decided to take Sassy Josh's
Crazy.
advice and just admit that he was
Mhm.
wrong. And so after the fact, after he went on the news and got torched, after all of it, he finally decided to say he was wrong in this video, where he doesn't admit he was wrong at all and doesn't
Oh my
apologize
God,
at all
shut
for
up,
anything,
dude. Don't
and
say
he
scary
just
movies
says
like
more
that.
bullshit. And
Scary
the
stuff
comment
like that.
section, you know, all the top
You're
comments
lying.
are saying Flacco's only doing this to save
Shut up,
face.
dude.
He's
Oh my
only doing
God.
this because
Stop it.
he's being called out. So he's facing backlash by his own fan base. Flacco should be gravely concerned about his career. I mean, this is going to be a permanent negative mark on his career. I mean, he's really in jeopardy of losing everything. I mean, this could all go away for him. If he were to be canceled, if Flacco were to just be relentlessly canceled by crowds because of his, you know, affinity for defending pedophilic behavior, that would really do
Let's
it,
look him
I
out.
think. So I really hope that he's considering doing a little bit a better job of salvaging his career. I mean, it's not looking good. He is getting away with it right now, but this could come back and everything could just go away. He might just get erased from the internet. You never know. You know what I mean? Like, it's that serious. So for this next clip, we're going to see Poetic Flacco and DJ Academics talk about how it's all Adam's fault that Boom got exposed for touching little girls. It's all Adam's fault. Adam had a vendetta.
I had chocolate over my lips. The chocolate out. Is that ice cream?
I'm cornered at the top because Boom, you feel me, has some, you feel me, you know, like has some questionable commentary.
No, I don't do it. I don't
Y'all
do
like
sports
playback
at
on
all.
Jason Love shit, you feel me?
I'm just trying to diet.
I feel like Boom and Adam has had their worst. So you're in agreement with me. Like, first of all, we can't, you know,
I couldn't even do that.
because this happened to be like some true shit.
Yeah.
I should start practicing that.
Adam probably had like a little extra incentive to get the dick.
Of course, right?
I'm always lonely. Yes.
Listen, I don't know who
Right.
called it here, right? But I'm just saying, it just came
I've
off.
been lonely for a good
It
minute.
came off as just really weird that 1090J already knew every information about this.
So what this sounds like to me is
No, I'd rather
it's
someone
the
do it
same
like-
if
like,
Adam didn't
push
have
me
it
like
out
that.
for Little Boom, no one would even care about his accusations. They would have never gotten exposed. This is all Adam's fault. Is basically
Like that.
what they're saying.
Yeah,
Isn't
like
it kind
that.
of,
Okay.
complicit?
Okay,
Isn't that kind of
she's like,
sickening?
okay,
So I want to
kind
show
of-
you
yeah,
a
I want
clip
my
of Adam
kids.
talking about exposing Little Boom. Watch this.
Just about some shit I can't even remember. One day I'm
Kind of want
scrolling
to get
Reddit
going.
and I
Okay,
see
well,
posts from like
good
the
night then.
Ocala Police Department Facebook.
Oh.
Some shit. 2020 or 2021 or whatever. And there's a picture of Lil Boom walking up at the Walmart. And the basic description of what they're saying that he did was that he went up in the Walmart and he was touching 10-year-old girls' butts. And I think it might have been like a 16-year-old's butt or some shit too.
17, yeah.
I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
Drinking, they gonna bitches walking up with that. Also, grown people shit.
So the 16 is the one who allegedly broke the story, and he's got allegations of his own. So, I mean, this is all just sort of perplexing, like what's going on. So we got the 16 exposing people for touching people who are 16. This is really incredible. You know what I mean? So the 16 actually broke this story. So this is really sort of also launched Poetic Flacco's career. So everything can really be traced back to the 16. That's really something. And so DJ Academics has officially named Poetic Flacco as the voice of the streets, and it's all thanks to the 16. So, I mean, this is really insane.
No, listen, no, but I feel like this interview is pretty much like passing the torch of the streets, right? And I feel like that's important, right? Because there's been a lot of bitch ass niggas who done claim the title as voice of the streets.
Flacco is the voice of the streets, and so I thought it was appropriate that we bring up his past.
You know what do I know?
So Flacco wants everyone to look at him like the voice of the streets, like he's a hip hop journalist, blogger, lover of hip hop, etc. When in reality, Poetic Flacco is actually a very feared, very hated digital assassin from the Umar Johnson sector of the internet. So for those who don't know what that is, the Umar Johnson sector is not hip hop. So what the Umar Johnson sector is this online universe that all surrounds this weirdo, alleged con artist, Dr. Umar Johnson. And there's like a whole community of YouTubers that will just like make content about Umar Johnson if they're either for him or against him or whatever. And so he's got all these like orbiters that make content. And so Flacco's job, so this is how, so what Flacco did to make a name for himself on YouTube.
When people always think I'm drunk, I don't, that's my voice. Oh, my thyroid is just swollen. That's what it is. I'm not drunk. Are you trying to say that I look fat, like cirrhosis fat or something by that? Like,
bullshit if you claim to be about black children. Monty Woodgrain, I'm in your ass. Lenore Honor, I'm in your ass. William Clay, I'm in your ass. Gerald Palmer, I'm in your ass. Antos Bengali, I'm in your ass. In Mukasa, Africa, I'm in your ass. Fuck court. Fuck the court. I want Mukasa, Africa's address.
I haven't even drank like, when I was 16, I'm like literally 29.
Lenore Honor,
What the
Gerald
fuck?
Palmer,
I don't even like
William Clay.
drinking.
Now, out of all of them, William Clay and Gerald Palmer are the main ones trying to get the event shut down.
So he used to go after all of Umar Johnson's enemies and allegedly made up a bunch of like stories about them, and I've got all the clips. Wait until you see these clips. These are like the way that he's just like staring into the camera and the way that he's talking, and the way it's just really creepy in a non-joking way. I mean, this is like a psychological thriller, but it's real. But I was really freaked out by it. I was like, whoa.
I've only never will drink ever again.
Down my spine. I was like, this guy's a serial killer.
I don't even think it tastes good. Like, I mean, like the feeling. I don't really like the feeling.
Online for this fucking guy. That's where Flacco came from.
Last time I drank, I remember vomiting, and then I felt good again.
An Umar Johnson antagonist by the name of Lennon Honor. He claimed that Lennon Honor was cheating on his wife with white gay men for Craigslist. Poetic Flacco later openly admitted, however, that he sent out the Craigslist ads himself, looking for gay men who had previous dealings with Lennon Honor.
So Flacco admitted to going out and making gay Craigslist ads to try to fish for former lovers of this guy that was against Umar Johnson. That's what we're dealing with here. I mean, this is how Flacco thinks. Flacco's big plan was to go online posing as a gay person to try to find dirt on someone. Okay, that's really disturbing. It's 100% out of pocket. This is the voice of the streets. Are you kidding me? So let's continue.
I haven't cuddled with someone in a long time.
Docs Lennon Honor's home address where his wife and kids stay. Doctored grinder messages and also passed around alleged nudes of Lennon Honor in order to try to destroy the reputation of Umar Johnson's biggest antagonist, and also simultaneously somehow gain notoriety, attention, subscribers, and views.
Oh, Lennon seen this young man named Jace and said, hey. Jace responded, hey, you're pretty close by, because it does look like they're about 2,000 feet away. And he says, yeah, this nigga was looking for butt sex tonight. This man said, cut the fucking chit chat, nigga. When can I get that butt tonight?
Okay, so who even talks like that? Who says butt sex like that in a serious context? what a disturbed individual this guy is. I mean, he's really, this is like what I'm talking about, serial killer. He talks like how I think a serial killer would talk. Like, he was looking for butt sex tonight. I mean, when I tell you that this creeped me out, I'm not kidding. This, like, literally made me, like, a little scared.
This nigga was looking for butt sex tonight.
Where you at, shouty?
Not much. Top or bottom? Hey, this nigga said verse, like the whole. So, oh my God, you mean to tell me, Lennon, you have a wife and kids, and you are verse? Meaning you can participate in violent activities sometimes, bro? You're getting butt fucked as a 44-year-old man. Bro, you are sinister. What you're doing to your wife is wrong. But again, this is not the worst of it. Let's continue. Type in this number and you will see it belongs to Lennon Honor. So I digress. Jace texts him saying, hey, it's Jace. Lennon responds back with, hi, how are you? Didn't get a chance to ask if you were a top or bottom. Jace is a bottom bitch. Again, he refers himself as a bottom bitch. I'm not being disrespectful. I love gay people. I'm not being disrespectful. What I have a problem with is a married man preying on younger men. Jace, I believe, is 19 or, in fact, I want to be correct, so let me check Jace's age. Sorry, I fell asleep. And he put, it's cool. LL. I'm still waiting on those pics. Again, Jace, I can't even speak up for you, bro. You are thirsty as fuck, my nigga. But again, Lennon, you're 44. What the fuck are you looking for butt sex from a 19-year-old kid, bro? So let her drop a nude, which I'm not gonna show on YouTube. However, if you want the nude, I can't say inbox me because I don't know if that's a crime. So again, if you want the nude, you can look for it. You can inbox me. I'm not saying I'll give it, but if you want, email me and you know, I would definitely go ahead and think about it.
Okay, so that was extremely disturbing. Like, I don't understand. So people saw this and weren't completely horrified and creeped out by it. I mean, this was so creepy to me. I really got a huge problem with what he used to do. He used to make fake gay communications. He used to go on Grindr and find guys to talk to. He would spoof some guy's number he didn't like, and then he would talk to a gay person. I've got a huge problem with that. I think that Flacco should be, and you know, people knew about this. I'm going to show you a clip. AD knew that Flacco used to do this, and he still liked him, and he still shared a platform with him. He still allowed him to talk. They knew that Flacco was certified as a fucking complete weirdo, and they still were like, well, Adam says we gotta like him, so I guess we like him. And so because of this, Flacco, in my opinion, should be viewed as like a huge, pathetic loser. I mean, for this to be where, like, the side of the internet that you came from, you should be, like, hysterically laughed at. You're an Umar Johnson henchman? Now you're a hip-hop commentator / journalist. That's a crazy transformation. So Flacco is like running from this dark and twisted past that haunts him. And so, you know, that's going on. But what I want to talk about right now is the fact that he's been lying. Flacco's been lying about where he's from. And nobody seems to know why. It's just an ongoing mystery. It's a great mystery. Poetic Flacco has been lying to everyone, telling everyone that he's from North Dakota. Born and raised, spent the overwhelming majority of his life in North Dakota. Okay, but the problem is that he's not from North Dakota, and he got exposed by his old classmates from Penwood High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Delco County to be exact. And so he actually got exposed, but no one knows why. He still hasn't explained this. He was let off the hook, and I'm going to explain exactly what I'm talking about in a second, but I want to play the clip of Flacco's old classmates calling in saying that he's full of shit. He's not from North Dakota. He's from Philly. He's from Delco. He's from Delaware County, Darby, Pennsylvania. Okay, so give it up for Darby. But why is Flacco lying? Why does he not? What's he running from? What's he hiding? Is that where his skeletons in his closet are, in Darby? Is it because of that girl that we're going to talk about in a little bit is from Darby? I mean, what's in Darby that Flacco is running from? Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's watch the clip.
Bro, you made a video talking about you from North Dakota. You was born and raised in North Dakota and shit. You only been to no, you wasn't. You was here, bro. I was with you in the day. I was with you in all the way to talk out here. Watch this, bro. Watch this shit.
I need some water. Hey, what did he do in the talent show?
He been hosting.
I remember that nigga deleting all his old posts, cause you know he on Facebook, he used to post like controversial posts and shit. He used to make some motherfucking posts and all that shit, you know what I'm saying? But he got on, I was happy for him. I was genuinely happy for Bull, but like I said, when I came across that one video, I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, what type of shit is this? Like, this nigga's claiming he from North Dakota and shit, like, that's shit corny.
So I do want to reiterate the fact that Flacco had been, up until this point, walking around telling people that he was from North Dakota. Okay, he never mentioned Philly or Darby or anything. He'd been
He's not a gangbanger. He's a civilian.
Nah, where he from? Nah, he's from.
He's from North Dakota.
That's some Mexican shit.
Nah, he's black.
Nah, bro, I'm North Dakota. And you black with a name like Flacco, you really don't talk.
He even lied to Adam, his boss, and stuff, and he turned in his ID and everything, said North Dakota on it, so, oh, he's from North Dakota. So Adam was actually extremely taken aback as well, and he's the one who instructed his employees to expose Flacco. And so what happened was, the audience, instead of looking at Flacco as like this imposter, potential sociopathic, little weird guy, they pretty much trumped this up to classic bullying. So they were looking at the hosts of No Jumper, they were looking at Adam the 16, and they were saying that they were just bullying Flacco. Leave Flacco alone. And it was really weird. And T-Rel and AD and everyone stuck up for Flacco. And they were saying, like, man, bullying's not cool, man. You saw what that guy at Walmart did. And they were worried that, I think that they were worried that Flacco was going to, like, lose his shit on everyone and, you know, the worst of the worst. You know, you guys know what I mean? So they were worried. They were scared of Flacco. So they stopped the bullying, the alleged bullying. This wasn't even bullying, okay? But AD went on this bleeding heart rant about Flacco and how Flacco called him crying like a 10-year-old girl and just sobbing and talking about how everyone's bullying him and being mean to him and they're being big, mean.
He called me, nigga, he was crying. Like,
Somebody's
legit.
phone's buzzing up.
That's my shit. He was crying. He was legit crying, bro, because he felt like, nigga, people is kicking him while he down. He was in a fucking corner.
Right, and it's tempting to think that somebody seems like they're being bullied when they start crying, but he wasn't being bullied.
Bro,
It was just asking him where he's from.
Can you imagine? No, not just where he's from. Can you imagine the fucking month that he's having, or the last 2
But
months?
you're saying all this shit to make him more sympathetic.
But it's not
Ultimately, what was done to him was nothing.
It's not about sympathetic.
And this is how Flacco slithered through the cracks and was able to get away with this huge lie. I mean, you can't go around lying. You can't lie about your entire existence. That's weird, okay? You can, but as long as everyone knows about it and everyone knows that you're weird, then I'm okay with it, okay? So Flacco got caught lying about where he's from. So he's actually from Darby, Pennsylvania, which is like a Philadelphia suburb. And there's a large Liberian, West African population there. And they have a large community, and that's where Flacco is from, okay? So what is he running from? Why is he lying? Is he lying about the girl? I think he may have a girl walking around out there that could ruin his life. And so that's probably why, in my humble opinion, that he is doing this.
Because Joe said something about like his girl, and that's why he did. But what happened, Joe? What happened, Joe? What happened? Joe, what happened with this girl that made him dip and moved to North Dakota? Oh shit! All right. Yeah, I don't know. I got some joining. I don't know. Tell or whatever her name is, but he was talking to some exposing him and shit. I think this was around the time. I don't know if he was still around or he was in North Dakota and shit. I don't know. But she was using Bull for his money and shit. I remember him posting about that shit. How she used him for his money and all that shit. Blah blah blah. She was playing. She was playing him and shit like that. I don't know that plays into effect. I'm dealing with these bitches out here and shit. They got him disowning his or where he from and shit.
Did he fuck?
Who he fucked with and shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, Gino wants to know if he fucked.
I don't know. He sound like a virgin every time he talks to me. I don't think he never fucked either. The shorty never claimed she fucked or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know shorty and shit. I don't know her like that. I ain't never fucked her or anything like that. I know her friends and shit, but, you know what I'm saying? But from what I've seen this shit on Facebook, that nigga was going through it. He was butthurt about this shit.
What was he fucking?
Alright, so I'm pretty sure that they're talking about this lady here that you're seeing right here. Okay, so this is from a now deleted live stream from Poetic Flacco's channel from the pre-No Jumper days, and he went live with this girl. And it was really weird and odd and cringe and awkward. But it's now deleted. He deleted it now. So I think he's trying to erase this girl. But we've got the footage. It is too late, Flacco. Okay, we've got the footage. We're going to show the footage. And if you try to do any frivolous copyright strike takedown strikes on my channel, I will retaliate and I will counter the strikes. And I will submit a complaint to YouTube stating that you put a false copyright strike on my channel and your channel will then be erased. Do you understand? Okay, you are not in control here. I'm in control. I'm the sheriff. You are Poetic Flacco. You are the subject of my investigation. You will just have to sit back and take it. There's nothing you can do about it. This is fair use. This is from the Reddit. This is from YouTube. This is on the internet. If you put something on the internet, it's on the internet for good and it's fair use. So, with that being said, I want to show you guys this girl that Poetic Flacco seems to want to hide from you guys.
Black rights, they have red rights. Hi. You get paid?
Okay, so this was really mysterious. This is a really good mystery for you guys. I don't know if this is staged, like if this is scripted and staged, and this is like she's put up to this for whatever reason. But this was really weird. Did you see how Flacco like grabbed her awkwardly and then was like swaying back and forth with her? This just looked so unnatural. She looked miserable. She looked embarrassed. This looks like someone who's pretending to be someone's girlfriend. I mean, I really look. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments. Is this genuine? Like, why does she look repulsed? Why does she push him off of her? This is really, I mean, this goes on and on. I'm going to be going over this on Patreon. So if you want to see an extensive reaction video to everything going on in this extended video, please go over to Patreon and join for only $3. It's $3 a month. It's worth it even if you only get it one time and then you can cancel. So anyways, go over to Patreon and catch this full reaction because there's a lot to look at. I mean, I'm genuinely curious about this. So anyways, I'm going to end it here. I'm sure there's going to be plenty to follow up on and, cover as it develops type thing. But I appreciate everyone that's still here, everyone that's hitting the like button. You guys know how much I love that like button. And I will see you guys on the next one.
Lápices de color crayón, diseñados para crear.
Alright, so for this video, I want to go over this new viral clip in which Chicago-based rapper Ruga presses the 16 of Nashua about his recent recklessly disrespectful comments. And this Ruga character repeatedly calls Adam 16 a PDF file to his face. What? And this would cause the 16 to have his bodyguard remove Ruga from the building. Okay, so this went semi-viral. I think this interview hit close to 300,000 views in the first day. I'm not sure how viral that is, but for No Jumper, that's very viral, I guess. And so when I saw this, I was immediately very curious about why Ruga has such a problem with Adam 16. Prince of Cucks. And so I conducted a full-scale investigation, and I've got the full story, and I'm excited to show you guys what I have found, and I'd like to start, of course, with the first clip. And so this first clip is going to be Ruga's explanation to the 16 why he doesn't like him, and this is what leads up to the ordeal. And so this is the first clip.
My thing is with you, man. When we went bad at the moment I did my interview with you, I talked to you before the cameras was even rolling. I said I ain't even want to talk about that billionaire shit. You feel me? I ain't got time to be bashing the next motherfucker on the internet or whatever. Then the first thing you started the interview off with was, you said you didn't want to talk about the billionaire shit. I literally just told you this. So it's like, even after the interview, I talked to you. I'm like, oh no, I just want to see the interview before I come out. Because I ain't got time to be stirring all goofy shit up. I ain't got time for that. But you, literally, any other time I DM you, you hit me back. But this particular time when I'm DMing you, telling you, like, send me the video, the clip, you're not hitting me back. Now you drop it. And you knew I talked to you and you agreed upon this. As a man, when you tell somebody I'm going to do this, you got to stand on it. So, and you ain't stand on your word.
Yeah, I should have been more direct. I just told you I was going to put it out.
Let me keep going. I ain't even...
Wow, so Ruga and the 16 had an agreement prior to their interview that certain topics wouldn't be brought up. And the 16, when the camera started rolling, he just went and asked the questions anyways. Because he's a cuck, and he has no integrity and no respect. And I'd like to show you the actual clip of that, actually. Okay, so check this out.
You right before I sat down, you're like, don't ask me about any street shit. The thing that you brought up was like somebody, a past affiliate of yours, sort of ran his mouth about you in a recent interview. You don't want to clap back at him?
Clap back?
Verbally clap back. Not
what is that gonna get me?
I mean, if he had his say about you, don't you want to have your say about him, or at least like correct the record?
So the 16 agreed not to do this exact thing that he's like opening the interview with. So this was highly disrespectful. No wonder Ruga doesn't like him. And this isn't the only thing. Ruga is going to list off a couple of other reasons why he doesn't like the 16th of Nashua. And one of the reasons is because apparently Adam 16 was disrespectful to the late rapper FBG Duck's mom. FBG Duck, of course, from Chicago, was gunned down, tragically, rest in peace. And his mother was on No Jumper, reliving it for the 16's amusement. And the 16 was, I guess, saying some disrespectful stuff. Let's hear what Ruga has to say about it.
You want to playing with folks' mama, like Doug mama, bro. I don't give a fuck how much you playing. Just don't play with folks' OG.
I think that was a mutual thing. Her and I had this little flirtatious joke thing going on. I mean, have you seen the interview? She's around with me like that, calling me handsome and all this shit too. It's not just like you remember that day? We could not believe the way she was flirting with me.
At the end of the day, another thing.
Okay, so this is a huge violation. So I got the clip, and we're gonna have a look at that. So the 16 thought that it would be cool to ask the late FBG Duck's mother if, when she caught FBG Duck's friend FYB J Main doing whoop. In other words, having intercourse. What? She walked in on FBG Duck's friend FYB J Main doing whoop years and years ago when they were just kids, and Adam followed up with the question of, did you enjoy watching? And the 16's excuse for this question was that he was just flirting with her. They were flirting. And for those who are wondering, FYB J Main at the time of this incident was 16. What? So the 16 is actually a fucking weirdo.
No, yeah, like 2011, 2010. So I go in my front room, I open the door, he whooping.
In your house.
He whooping, baby.
What position?
Duh. Nah, I don't know. I don't want to kill a visual. I'm not even trying to think back that far. But,
We've established that you love street dudes. There wasn't a little bit of you that was aroused when you saw J Main getting his whoop on?
This must be the end of the interview. This gotta be the end of the interview, my friend.
No. That was just...
But like I said, Adam...
That is insane. So he asked FBG Duck's mom, the late rapper, he died. She's on this platform giving an interview, reliving it. She's obviously been drinking. And the 16 is asking her if she was aroused at watching her teenage son's friend doing Whoop. And there is not one person that would disagree that this is like very disrespectful to ask a grieving mother who's a guest on your show. I mean, let's hear from FYP J-Main himself.
Narrative that I was disrespecting her or something like that.
First of all,
I asked her if she got turned on when she saw you having sex with someone.
that's disrespectful to ask LBG Doug Mama, bro.
She would be like, "What you walked in on Remo piping?" And she, and I asked her like, "Oh, did you like it? Did you like seeing Remo pipe? You like looking at?"
We not gonna ask Mama 22 no like that.
But
we got respect, bro.
My mom also doesn't do interviews. If she was putting herself into those situations, I think it would be fair to ask her if she got a little bit turned on when she saw a beautiful young man like yourself.
Did you hear what he just said? And his excuse for this that he offers is that she was flirting with him the whole time.
I mean, have you seen the interview? She's around with me like that, calling me handsome and all this shit too. It's not just like,
what? Okay, so I checked the transcript for this interview, and the word handsome never came up one time. So he says, go check the interview. She was calling me handsome. She was flirting with me like crazy. So of course, I asked her if she was aroused at watching teenage sex. And so I did just that. I went and looked at the interview. I didn't hear or see any flirting. I searched the keyword handsome. It was not said one time. So the 16 is a cuckold-faced liar, and I just wanted to point that out. So he was very disrespectful, he was very shady, and he, instead of taking ownership of his mistake, of his poor judgment and his disrespect, and apologizing and acknowledging that he's a piece of shit, he lies, and he tries to, create this narrative that his heinously inappropriate and disrespectful line of questioning was actually FBG Duck's mom's fault. So I just wanted to show you that because the 16's just not going to be getting away with this one, okay, or anything else of this nature, not as long as I'm sheriff. So let's go to this next point that Ruga makes. And Ruga was absolutely right about this, by the way, but let's move on to this next reason why Ruga doesn't like the 16 and why he's about to press him.
Hey, another thing. We play with Wooski, bro. Like, just hit me out.
We talk.
I don't care if y'all talk. I got a personal problem with it. Because it's the principle of you playing with him about him getting shot in the head. That shit ain't no joke.
For sure, Wooski should have thought about that before he started talking shit to me. Because when you start doing battle in hip-hop, you're going to use whatever you got to talk shit. He did. He started shit with me, so I mentioned something like that.
You went on an interview with Cairo and brought up Wooski.
Right, in a very light way, like barely. The idea that deserved the reaction that he then gave me is fucking insane.
So what Ruga is referring to is a back and forth situation that was going on between FBG Wooski and the 16 of Nashua. So let me try to explain. So the 16 was sitting on an interview with someone that doesn't really like Wooski very much, let's just say. And the 16 brought up Wooski and was talking about how you don't want to have Wooski vibes because they're a little off these days. His words, not mine. Let's take a look. Like a lot of people say he a real street nigga, but he don't give me no Wooski vibes. I'm like,
Wooski vibes is crazy.
like, why is you even like, come on, folks?
I don't think you want to have Wooski vibes anyway.
No.
Wooski's vibes are a little off these days.
Yeah, that message is too off.
Shout out to him, but.
Okay, so let me try to explain this. So to have Wooski vibes means that you are considered to be a real stepper. If you give Wooski vibes, that means you give the vibe that you're actually going to do something to someone if needed. You're not just all talk. You're actually considered to be a boogeyman. So it's sort of, a term of endearment in Chicago. Like if you give off Wooski vibes, that means that you are feared. And so if you're moving around in the streets, you want to be respected and feared, and you want people to take you seriously. And if you don't give off Wooski vibes, people aren't going to really take you seriously. But the 16 says you don't really want to have Wooski vibes anyways. Wooski's a little off these days. Shout outs. I mean, you know what I mean? He's being very snide. And this is disrespect. He's throwing shade. He's saying that Wooski is off. Now let me explain what he means by that, what he means by off. So Wooski was hit in the head with a bullet, and it went in, and he was severely critically injured. And I believe that it went and hit like the frontal prefrontal cortex of the frontal lobe of his brain. And damage to this sector of the brain can cause, cognitive, like speech problems and cause delays and things like that. I mean, there's a plethora of different. I'm not a neurologist. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you can imagine what the trauma of this type of wound would do to you if you were to survive such a wound. And so Wooski has been dealing with ailments, I think, and it's affected like his present, like his demeanor. I really don't even know how to explain it, but the poor guy is, he's just not the same. He's a survivor. So I want to show you before and after from this incident, because I think it'll help you understand.
Some of y'all know what about, man. We right here with 60-second Everhard. Third Earn and Bro. Cheetos. RP pretty guys. Cracker Trace, Drop on Eyes. 6 Black Gang, we are out here. Fucking talking about, we don't want to talk. BDK, bitch. Let's walk up, get in, Mike. Shit. First place I remember living is 73rd Street. I was in the way around like 4 or 5 or something.
So this is what the 16 is referring to when he's saying you don't want to have Wooski vibes. They're kind of off these days. It's because he is sort of a different, his demeanor is different now in interviews and such. So the 16, that's throwing a shot. I don't care what anyone says, okay? The 16 started it. And so Wooski responds to this by sending the 16 a DM that reads as follows. Yo ass talking about motherfuckers is off, dude, but you the same motherfucker scared to work with me, so you the motherfucker that's off. Now, when you ready to meet the real me instead of the motherfucker you know and put your money where your mouth is, let me know, goofy dude. While I'm doing the interview, your wife could be sucking my dick. What? And then Adam responds with laughing emojis and says, I can hear the brain damage through the screen. Wow, so that's over the line. And then he screenshots this and posts it to Instagram for clout and captions it with, he changed something different. So these are King Von lyrics, and this is gangsta shit. So the 16 is using lyrics of his rival Ops in order to taunt him and make fun of his misfortune.
Just hope you basically recited lyrics that you knew was really serious, bro, that like behind the situation.
I think you're taking different situations and combining them together, though. If that was all about Sean Cotton saying that he didn't think Cairo had Wooski vibes.
Listen, when you do that, you place yourself in street shit.
Right.
It get real after that. Like for real, guys. Like
even though Wooski dissed me and talked shit to me first, that I should be able to talk back to him in response.
You throw the rock and you hide your hand.
That's not true.
That's what
He threw the rock.
You throw the rock and hide your hand.
He threw the rock.
And just like I said,
he threw the rock. No, it's very clear that you threw the rock and he responded, but it's not clear about that. The 16 just sits up here and lies. It's really disturbing. It's clear that this entire feud between him and Wooski started when he said that Wooski was a little off these days. You don't want to have Wooski vibes these days. And then Wooski says your wife can suck my dick, which the 16 applauds his wife for sucking dick. It is clearly disproportionate. Now, I'll give you an example. So Lena, the plug, was R-worded, and Wooski made a joke about her getting R-worded. That would be more along the, that would probably give justification for the 16 to do this. But all he did was say that she can do what she always does and sucks dick. You know what I mean? It's just, I can't believe that the 16 is trying to justify his actions. So Ruga is pissed off about this, and so am I. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the moment we've all been waiting for. This is the part where Ruga actually starts to press this BMX cuckold, and this is where it gets good.
He didn't think Cairo had Wooski vibes.
Listen, when you do that, you place yourself in street shit.
Right.
It get real after that.
Okay.
Like for real, gang. Like on some real shit. Like if I would have came here right now with 4 pairs of boxing gloves, 7 bitches on the table right now, like, come fight me right now. Let's go fight. Would you?
No, that shit's good.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Doing some stupid ass clout shit if you did something like that, for sure.
It wouldn't be no clout shit.
I would look at you like you're doing some goofy ass clout shit.
Meanwhile, the 16's entire identity is comprised of goofy ass clout shit. This is all he does. He's staging fake girlfriends. He's doing all this WWE. I mean, could you guys do me a favor? Could you guys put in the comment section below an example that you know of that the 16, I mean, there's so much. He is literally known for doing this, shamelessly. And because it has to do with boxing gloves, that's where the 16 says, that's goofy as fuck. I gotta tell you, I was shocked when I heard this. And I want to point out that Ruga is simply offering this hypothetical question of this, like, analogy of a situation. And what he's saying is, what he's trying to demonstrate here is that even if the 16 was offered boxing gloves to go outside and stand on what he said, he still wouldn't because he is a huge bitch. And that's the point that Ruga was making. He doesn't have boxing gloves literally. He's not literally trying to get him to go outside. He's just trying to get the 16 to understand that he is a giant pussy and that he shouldn't talk like this unless he is prepared to deal with this type of situation, like getting beat up or worse. So let's see a little bit more of this.
Because you ain't gonna post it anyway. But this is what I'm telling you. At the end of the day, if I ask you that type of shit, you ain't really willing to even just fight. Don't stop egging it on, gang. Like, if you ain't literally just willing to fight,
why do you think that? Why do I need to be on board with fighting? Like, I never said I was a boxer. Why do I need to be a boxer?
You got on the internet, you said Ruga a bitch, acting like a bitch. Them fighting words to me. We don't play about that shit. Now I could come in here and really get on bullshit. You see what I'm saying? We don't play about certain shit. And you gotta understand, when you step in that field, you gotta accept everything that come with it.
Do I seem like I'm worried about that?
At the end of the day, gang.
Do I seem like I'm worried about any of the shit? Like, there's a lot of friends, there's a lot of ideas. I'm chilling.
You just sat here and said, if I asked you with the boxing glove to fight, you said you would not do it.
Right,
so you
because I'm not a boxer.
You know why? Because you're worried about getting knocked the fuck out.
No, because I just don't want to take part in
you worried about getting knocked the fuck out. It wouldn't be no clout shit. You know why?
Yes, it is.
You wouldn't have no cameras rolling.
Challenging a non-boxer to a boxing match when I've never said or done anything that suggested that I wanted to be a boxer.
What the?
Whoa. So Ruga never challenged him to this. He just said, if I were to come in here with boxing gloves, this is a hypothetical question. And Ruga makes the point that you said that you wouldn't even stand on this with boxing gloves. And, so it's not like you're really going to get seriously hurt. You won't even do that. You're that much of a coward. Okay, you're Jack Doherty. You egg people on and then you hide behind your security guards, your bodyguards. So Ruga's absolutely right. And the 16's trying to use a fallacy argument, saying that I'm not a professional boxer. Why would I put on boxing? I mean, who said anything about being a professional boxer? So you have to be a professional boxer to get into a fight? I don't understand. So the 16 is really getting owned here.
Said you wouldn't even fight. So you're not ready. That's what I'm telling you.
Being ready is not the same as having to take part in goofy ass crowd shenanigans.
On some real shit, L nigga tell you in Cali, what they say, we run a phase around, they run phase around this bitch.
You hanging out with the wrong guys in Cali.
Exactly.
But they don't run phase in Cali?
Not a lot.
Whatever going on, we fight.
Okay, so the 16 says people in Cali don't run fades. Has he ever heard of LA County Jail?
What?
That's all they fucking do in there is run fades. And you want to know why they run fades? Because they got to stand on business, something that the 16 has never done. It's like the 16 really thinks that he knows something about something. It's really fascinating.
Threats, the vague, oh, something's going to happen to you.
Threatening you.
The 22ster ain't pressed.
I'm telling
Trust
you.
me.
If
Sounds
somebody
like a
asks
threat.
you,
Sounds like you're trying to threaten me.
At the end of the day, I'm telling you as a real. I'm telling you as a man, nigga.
Right.
You gonna get stuck out here playing.
So the 16's excuse for not being physically capable of defending himself, saying, I never signed up to be a professional boxer. So what you guys need to understand about this is that he's identified that he's getting bitched by Ruga, so he has to change the argument into something different, which is about all this boxing gloves talk. That's not what I never signed up to. So he's actually using mental gymnastics to win this argument. You can tell his mind is racing. How am I going to switch this up? How am I going to manipulate this conversation? So that is really sad. So just imagine someone coming up and starting to beat up Lena the Plug. They're out on a date. Someone attacks Lena the Plug. The 16 can't defend her. He can't even defend himself. So what would his excuse be then? I never signed up to be a police officer. I am a podcaster. So, I mean, the man can't defend his own family. That is what is so sad.
My whole thing is that I'm not willing to take people and let them convince me that I need to fight to defend my manhood.
Nobody said that you had to fight to defend your manhood. He's simply saying if you're going to be talking crazy and reciting gang-related lyrics and making fun of people, it's a very dangerous situation. You might end up getting beaten up, and he's just trying to demonstrate to you that you are not like that at all, that you are a major pussy. This is why Lennon doesn't respect you as a man. Your manhood's already gone. We're talking about being able to stand on business, okay? So the 16 is unsuccessfully trying to make this about Ruga bullying him. It's just not what he's doing. Ruga is trying to, out of the kindness of his heart, he's trying to help the 16 understand that he could get beat up for this and that he's going to have to answer for it should he run into someone. It's very easy to understand.
Ask for him and let them convince you. You can try to convince people that you tough and you this and that.
When have I ever acted like I was tough?
On some real shit. Just,
oh my God. So when have I ever acted tough? So, I mean, you act tough all the time. You have developed this persona that conveys like this attitude of superiority just to mask your own insecurities. We saw this with your Van Lathan interview. Shouts to Van Lathan, by the way, a friend of the channel. I'd like to show you a clip of Van Lathan and the 16 talking about the 16's tough guy attitude.
Did Ruga, prior to the interview, tell you that he didn't want to talk about that, yes or no?
He did briefly say that.
Like, if I can't ask about that, if you're going to come on here and I can't ask about that, I don't need to have this person on.
Mm-hmm.
Gets a little devilish when you say that you won't do it, and then you get them on the camera and you ask them about it anyway.
He did not.
You telling people to slide,
Mm-hmm.
you doing all of that?
Because you go through this time period in your life where you're listening to rap music and you're hearing all these dudes talk about what they're going to do, etc. And I kind of have this epiphany. All I got to do is call their bluff, and they're not going to do anything. So I called multiple bluffs, and I raked the chips in. I'm a poker player. I raked the chips in.
Oh, show them the bad news. Ouch, yeah, that one hurt.
That's all mine?
yeah, I got 11.
Oh, that one hurt.
Raked the chips in because the reality is that these are logical entities out here who, for the most part, behave logically, and there is not enough insanity lurking around in their brain for them to come do something physically to me. Now, if they would like to, I'm here.
They're going to.
Sure.
What I'm saying is, the more you...
So I don't care what anyone else's definition of tough guy. When you have this face on your face and you're taunting people to come do something to you and you're waving them in, you're saying, come on, that's tough guy. And that's what Ruga is saying. He's not. So if the 16 was saying, I encourage you not to do that because my security guards will probably get the better of you, he doesn't say that. He acts like he's comfortable, like you know what I mean. So this is a violation.
When have I ever acted like I was tough? Now, if they would like to, I'm here.
They're going
Unless you're gonna do something,
You wouldn't.
I don't want to hear
Do
it.
you want to fight?
No.
He go try to sue. He gonna be one of them soft ass.
How am I gonna sue you when I got way more money than you?
Because you
That's
soft.
not usually how it
Because
works.
you soft. So you telling me if I hit you in your mouth, you ain't gonna sue me?
I don't need to sue you.
You ain't answering my question.
Am I gonna sue you? Why would I sue somebody that I have way more money than?
If I hit you in your mouth, then what?
So I would agree that this is sort of petty for Ruga to say. I mean, like he's worried about suing. I mean, he may very well be. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to attack the 16 because they're worried that something might happen to them legally, like getting charges pressed or sued in court or something like that. But I mean, it just, now the 16 is a humongous vagina, so I wouldn't put anything past him. And for the 16 to say that, why would I sue someone I have way more money than? Well, I mean, you should tell that to Johnny Depp. What? Because people sue people that have less money than them all the time, just to fuck with them. It's very common, extremely common. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how beneficial it is for you, but you could do it just to fuck with him and take his Rolex or whatever. So that is what happened. Let's see what happens next.
Ready to fight?
That's
That ain't
you
even-
coming
that
up
ain't
with
even
an
that.
arbitrary way for
So
our to
that's
prove
some
our
scary ass stuff.
masculinity, and I'm letting you know that if you want to have a boxing match, I want to have a snowboard competition.
Bro,
It's exactly the same thing.
So now the 16 is trying to make up a fallacious argument, which I believe this one is false analogy, where he's offering an analogy that's completely different and saying that it's the same thing. And what I think is funny is that he says snowboarding competition, because that's the same. Why wouldn't you say something you're good at, like BMX, like your bicycle riding? Why wouldn't you say, well, it's because he doesn't want to get roasted. He doesn't want to call attention to the fact that he is a BMX enthusiast, and this is what his whole career is based on, is BMX bikes. So why wouldn't he say, I want to have a bar spin competition at the skate park with our bicycles? He didn't want to get roasted. So the 16's manipulating this conversation. A snowboarding competition. He might be good at snowboarding too. He's bottom heavy. Okay, the lower half of his body dominates his up. So he might be a good snowboarder, but he's not known for that. So for him to say that is deception in my
Just say you scared. Do it.
I'm not a fighter, so if he do this,
Just say you scared.
There's a reason I move around the way that I do. It's because I don't want someone like you to try to think you can bully me.
If you said the reason why you move, because you don't want to you up, right?
Well, of course.
Do some shit to you.
I don't even know why you think you can come on my podcast and talk shit to me like this when you're obviously not going to do shit. Yeah.
Listen,
you're going to have to leave if you want to keep talking tough, because nobody is interested in hearing you talk shit like that.
What the fuck just happened? Oh my god. So the security guard comes in and checks the 16. He says, hey man, this ain't gonna be no Jack Doherty shit in here. You need to treat people with respect, because I'm not your fucking bitch that's gonna come save you from an ass whooping because of your fault. I'm here for people that, attack you unprovoked. So the 16's trying to do his Jack Doherty, and the security guard tells Adam to shut the hell up, basically. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, I want you to pay attention to how much more instigatory and how much more extra the 16 behaves in these following clips, because the security guard's in the room now. The 16 pushed the fucking secret button under the table, and the security guard came to rescue him. Very interesting. And this is the part where Aruga calls the 16 a PDF file to his face. This was very, very cool, and this is probably why it went so viral, or whatever you want to call it.
I can have you removed right now. Do you want to go? I know. You want to go wait outside? Right. I'm not a boxer. I made that extremely clear.
Stop talking.
I'm a podcaster. Why the would I stop talking?
Stop talking. That's your problem.
Why would I stop talking when I'm a podcaster?
Now that the security guard is present inside the room, ready to get down if needed, the 16 starts yelling and beating the table like an idiot, trying to get Ruga to snap and do something so that the 16 could use this for a viral clip. The 16 was not doing this before the security guard walked in.
By doing boxing matches with cavemen who want to act tough. And I'm describing your brain.
You weird.
Not your race.
You weird.
I'm going to ask you to leave.
That's cool. I'll leave. But I'm telling you, you a bitch.
I don't care.
And your ass a handsome guy. Handsome guy. Nigga, come on.
Sure.
I'm gonna get up out of here. Don't touch me though.
Yeah, you're going to have to go.
That's a handsome guy.
You're going to have to go.
I bet you y'all, he delete this out. I bet you he delete this out the interview.
You're going to have to go.
Be handsome guy.
Capable of acting like a
handsome guy.
You can't act like
handsome guy.
Behave like a grown-up.
Handsome shit.
Behave like a grown-up, Ruga.
Come on.
Get the fuck out.
Touch you?
Get out of here.
You scared.
You're fired.
You's a handsome guy. Handsome guy. Handsome guy.
There you go. Get the
You got a soft ass.
So Ruga starts repeatedly calling the 16 a PDF file. He says that he is in PDF format and that he is you guys can figure out what this means on your own time, but I just wanted to point this out. The crinkle-nosed laugh.
What?
The crinkled-nosed laugh is the thing that the 16 does when he is gravely insecure and when he is raging inside. You guys remember when someone on Neon's stream sent in a super chat and it was a TTS message and I was mentioned and it said something like point and shoot, Desiree or whatever. I'm going to play that clip for you right now.
Adam wondered if you groomed Desiree when she was 16 and posts weird blog posts.
That's cap. They know it's cap too.
Also,
Should we stop TTS?
Lauren Zaccolina
I mean,
pointed
that's
shit supremacy at 16.
Oh god.
Alright, we're done with this. Yeah.
Jerry 915.
One more chance, chat.
Wow, so the crinkled nose laugh strikes again. So Ruga that actually bothered the 16 deeply. And for that, Ruga has secured the W, okay? He got over on the 16, the only way that he could which is to present these things that the 16 hates being called 16. He hates the fact of the matter of, you know, the things that he's done. And Ruga pointed it out repeatedly and caused the crinkle nose laugh. So Ruga wins. He has embarrassed the 16. And so the 16 made this AI thing, which I don't think is legal, by the way. I think you have to disclose in the video in real time if you're using AI to depict someone. You know what I mean? Ruga wasn't saying handsome guy. No one has said handsome guy, ever. Not even Lena. So I want that under investigation, if possible. And so he creates this AI clip saying handsome guy, handsome guy. He was really saying PDF file. Okay, one of the worst formats that you could ever find yourself in. So that's what happened, and then he gets and then Ruga gets removed. Let's take a look.
Oh, my son. That's crazy. He's soft as hell.
Get out of here.
Okay, so then he got removed by the 16's bodyguard. He was asked to wait outside for the remainder of the interview. This wasn't even his interview. This was T Grizzly's interview. T Grizzly and his friend stayed. Marugo waited outside. He already got what he wanted. He got what he came to do. He did what he came to do. So this next part, I had a huge issue with. The 16 was trying his best to spin the narrative and make sure that people didn't think that he was a giant vagina, which he is. And so him and Lush talk about the ordeal, and I just found a couple things interesting. I'd like to share that with you guys. Let's see.
And that's why he turns to challenging me to a fight, is because he was having such a hard time making sense. And so people who felt like I, for some reason, owed him a fight. You are also cavemen. I just want to make that clear, because anyone who thinks that you just get to show up to a podcast and request a fight with the host, you are retarded. No offense. Maybe a decent percentage of the audience, but you are retarded.
Also, he's going off on his own audience that are calling him out for being a giant puss. He thinks his own audience is stupid. He thinks that they're dumb, retarded cavemen. His words, not mine. And I thought this was so mean and inappropriate for him to do to his own, the couple of thousand people that watch the show that are left. He's crashing out on them for simply having a belief that differs from his own. What a bad person. So let's keep watching their
fight each other. Do we really want to see podcasters fight? No. We're in this field because we're intelligent. Right. We have the ability to speak, to make articulate points that are gonna be poignant, and that's what I feel like people want from us. Why do they need to see us squabble? And that's not our field.
And I feel like, look at this comment, $5, Adam, why are you pretending that you didn't say that completely uncalled for Whiskey Vibes commencement and now you're playing victim? We all watched it. Again, you are retarded, because calling it completely uncalled for when the dude showed up in my DMs insulting my wife and my kid, how is that uncalled for? You're just as dumb as Ruga. You're actually the target audience that he's trying to impress with this bullshit. I feel like this might be the most open and shut example that I can think of in which the people leaving comments who think that Ruga put on a good show and that he really showed me are cretins. They are the bottom of the barrel.
It's a good way to measure somebody's capacity.
Anybody who seems like they've been off the block, who has maybe had some kind of life experience or understand how the world works.
So the 16 is insulting his own audience some more. Okay, and you got Lush One over here. Nah, fool, who would want to see us squabble? That shit's for caveman, you feel me? Who would want to see me squabble anyone? That's not what we're about. We're podcasting. Shut the fuck up. What? So I'd like to play you guys a clip of Lush One saying the opposite of what he's such a yes. This is why the 16 hired Lush back, because Lush agrees with everything the 16 says. He's a spineless yes man. Oh, nah, fool, you're totally right, Adam. Everyone else is wrong, you feel me? This is what you hear from Lush One every show. It gets so exhausting listening to it sometimes. But I just want to play you this clip. This is a few months back, before Lush was officially back on, and he was saying something totally different. Let's take a look.
No, I never called that fool out for a fade, but I don't give a fuck. Ain't nobody calling me out for a fade and turning down. I'll fight anybody in. I don't want to fight nobody in here, but I'll fight anybody.
Go again, bro.
want to see podcasters fight? No. We're in this field because we're intelligent.
No, fool, like do you really want to see podcasters fighting? I don't think anybody wants to see that. Well, let's take a look at the footage of you talking about fighting Almighty Suspect, a podcaster.
What? I went and, I handled this, lost, but I still did it. You feel me?
I respect it.
Win, lose, or draw. Fuck it. You feel me?
Yeah, I respect it. I mean, I turned down Milk's Fade, but looking back on it, maybe I should have gone for it.
I mean...
Wow. So the 16 says, maybe I should have fought to defend my manhood against Milk. So if it's against Milk, someone that you can... Okay, so the 16's a contradiction machine, but not as much as Lush. Could you believe Lush? Yeah, fool, I handled my business, you feel me? I went in there, I knew I was gonna lose, but I said, fuck it, I ain't turning shit down. I'm a motherfucking podcaster, you feel me? And he's just so insufferable at this point. So that's two instances where Lush is talking about standing his ground and fighting when he needs to fight as a man. And the 16 says, I respect it. I gotta tell you, I respect the hell out of that type of behavior. So the 16's a fucking lying psychopathic fraud at this point. And Lush, well, he's just a yes man. And so the take-home message is that Ruga was trying to teach the 16 a valuable lesson using his words. And the 16, having a warehouse filled with bodyguards, called him out for it and tried to shift it into this, like, he's a barbarian. He's trying to, I don't even know what the fuck the 16 was trying. Basically, the 16 was trying to bury the narrative that he's a coward. Okay? And so I commend Ruga for his efforts in exposing the cowardness that is the 16. And I just want to close with thank you guys so much for watching these videos and hitting like and subscribe and commenting all the beautiful comments that I get to read. I really enjoy. So thank you guys so much. I've got work to do on this next Patreon special that I've got coming up. And what can I say? I'll see you guys on the next one. Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be covering probably the biggest story to come out of No Jumper in a long time. Sharp Rob of the Las Vegas Crane Crushers has been relieved of his duties. Sharp Rob Swanger is done. He has completely crashed himself out. He is no longer with No Jumper. He will never be with No Jumper again. And the damnedest part about it is he did it himself. He announced that he was leaving No Jumper. And since Sharp made this idiotic announcement, the whole No Jumper staff team, whatever you want to call it, has turned on him. Everyone's been just shitting all over him. The 16 has fully turned on him. Lush has turned. Everyone's just turning on him. And he's out. The Figmunity world wants nothing to do with him. No one. I mean, Sharp's done. Okay? Sharp's done. I mean, it's just such an incredible story. I don't even know how to even begin to cover it. It's so much. It would take entire days, if not weeks, to cover this, to cover every detail of this event. But I'm going to do my best to get through the main stuff. And if I do miss anything, I wish that you would let me know in the commentary section below, because this is fucked. Okay, let me just go ahead and start with the very first clip. So this first clip is going to be Sharp Rob on his home live stream revealing that he is leaving No Jumper.
I'm the last real pillar, my nigga. And I take my pillar down. Straight up, niggas say whatever they want to say. I've done great throughout it all. I take my pillar down, though, my nigga. Mine no longer stands. Hey, I'm good. I need a little break from all this.
So Sharp thinks that he's a pillar of No Jumper, like he's a support, like if he's not there, then what will they ever do? I'm taking my fucking pillar down, my pillar no longer stands. And then he does a cold walk off as if he's a somebody. And then he comes back from the Drake Shrine talking about, I just need a fucking break is all, church. I didn't mean that, really. I just needed a fucking break from all this shit. And he's saying this because the reason why he's freaking out and quitting is because of a YouTube video that came out about him from Big Chat Small World, the same YouTube channel I shouted out on the last video I made. Well, Big Chat Small World made a video about Sharp and how much he sucks and how his career is headed into the dirt. Sharp didn't like that at all, and so he freaked the fuck out and basically quit his job. Well, he didn't quit. He said that he needed a break, and I think this was a cry for help. I think he wanted attention. He wanted to get people talking about him. He wanted people to beg him to stay and everything else. But that's not what happened. Everyone basically just laughed at him. And it was really funny. And he would go on and on and on and on for hours talking about this Big Chat Small World video and how wrong it was and how Sharp Tank is one of the greatest things ever to grace the internet and how he was so special.
Be honest with you, I'm really over it. I ain't gonna hold you. And I can get it, some good things have their dead ends, but this one right here I feel like was kind of forced. I'm gonna be honest with you. Sharp and Sharp Tank and No Jumper, that shit could prevail.
So Sharp's sitting there trying to convince himself that he's good. He's like, straight up, I don't give a fuck what everyone says. I know that the Sharp Tank is. I'm gonna be real with you, church. I know that I suck ball sweat right now, but it could prevail. You did. So that's what I mean. Pretty much, he didn't really quit. He just sort of wanted everyone. He's threatening to quit because he thinks he's important, which is viciously stupid. Now, everything that we've talked about up until right now has been trash compared to what we're about to go over. This is where it gets good. This is where Sharp Rob brings up Lena the Plug, the 16's disgusting wife, and he starts talking about how she doesn't like him, which means Adam must not like him too, and that they shade him behind his back and everything else. This is where it gets good. Watch this.
I've been trying to get the Lena interview. Shit, nigga, I never wanted to sit down with her and be on some drag, even though she bashed my name kind of low-key, nigga, back in the beginning. Flacco asked her about me and said, what do you think about Sharp? She said, I think I could poke a hole in Sharp's little thing. And you know what? I ain't never had nothing against Betty or against her, and I never did. I've always kept her respectful, even though every time she walked through, my nigga, she always looked like she way bigger than me. Every time she looked at me, she looked down upon me.
Wow, so Lena did not like Sharp, and she was talking about this with Jala. Let's take a look at the clip here.
All right, so what is your thought on Sharp?
My thought on Sharp, I think that if I came on here, Sharp would be really nice to me, and it would kind of just poke holes in his whole thing, because why would I be different than any of the other girls that come on here? But like at the No Jumper show, at the live show, he just kind of got on stage and was just kind of like, bitch, and I just like didn't really, like what is that? Like, I don't get it.
He's a performer, he's a wrestler.
Wow, so Lena did in fact openly shit on Sharp Rob long ago. This was like a couple years ago. This was before she entered the Metamorphosis. And the 16's basically calling him fake, saying that he's like a WWE style wrestler. I mean, this is, if I was Sharp, I would be so infuriated by this. And he was. And that's what he's bitching about in this clip. So let's go back to Rob, see what Rob has to say.
It lets me know what type of conversations be happening about me. You know what I'm saying? So I pay attention. And my bitch sitting there and like she acting a funny way towards you. That lets me know, nigga, what type of, that should let you know what type of conversations are being had about you at home. I'm too real for that shit, my nigga. I go home to mine, gang. At least I go home with all the awards, my nigga. I was having them way before all that shit.
He says he has all these awards. He's talking about these Academy Award Oscar replicas that he was given at this fake pimp's ball that he went to with his alleged wife. The Players Ball. You guys remember when he won the award for Pimp of the Year? They gave him these plastic trophies. He thinks that people give a shit about this. He is genuinely proud of this as if it's an accomplishment. He's got these trophies, these plastic trophies, displayed in this awful apartment in front of this ugly couch, the sectional sofa, this used piece of shit, and he's got the black light and it's shining down, showing all the stains. I mean, Sharp's apartment is disgusting. I bet there's cockroaches. So he's got these trophies out. He probably polishes these plastic trophies every single night. I mean, no one gives a fuck about these except for him. But these trophies are all he's got. He's holding on to these trophies. These are everything to him. These are all he's got, okay? And I wanted to point out, look at I mean, this looks like a different Sharp Rob in this video of him accepting these plastic trophies. I mean, is it the face tattoos? Is it the 19,000 cigarettes and bottles of cheap rosé? I mean, he looks different to me. He looks healthy. He looks about 15 years younger. He looks, I mean, he's really shining, isn't he? But not anymore. Now he looks like a dapper bum. He looks like a homeless person that won lottery. And he's dressing himself up like a fucking idiot and everything else. And the tattoos on his face, oh my goodness. That stupid ass spike tattoo on his eyeball. Look at the type of people that wear this tattoo, and you tell me what's going on.
Just put the toilet paper on the roll the correct way.
To stop somebody from wearing something every time they look stupid, I would spend all my time stopping people from wearing things.
So you see what I mean? The demographic that usually wears this tattoo. I mean, something's got to be wrong with you to have this tattoo. So Sharp, somewhere along the way, something became wrong with him, and that's why he started letting people draw all over his face. And it was around that time that he started getting these idiotic tattoos on his face that people started noticing that he sucked. So, I mean, I think he may have entered a state of psychosis at this time. This is a pivotal time. When he got that tattoo, that's when he started to fall off. And so Sharp Rob accuses the 16 of having conversations with his gross wife behind the scenes about him, talking gauge about him. And this clip is 2 years old, so Sharp's been holding his tongue. He hasn't been keeping it real. He's been keeping it fake. He's been holding on to this whole time, just believing that the 16 has been talking bad about him behind his back with his wife. And Sharp was too much of a coward to confront the 16 himself. He's not I'm a real one. If anyone has a problem with me, I'll ask you straight to your face, homie. I'm a real one. No, you're actually a fake one, okay? And you are fired because the 16 did not appreciate Sharp talking about his wife. And so this next clip is going to be the 16's response. The 16 responded swiftly immediately after Sharp ended this live. The 16 went live on the No Jumper main channel. He was live from his phone on the No Jumper main channel. And this is what he had to say basically.
So this little temper tantrum rant thing, whatever he did today, I don't really respect it. But let me also just comment on the girl thing. I talk bad about him to Lena. Because when he would see Lena in the workplace, he could tell that she thought that she was better than him. Ooh, okay, let's talk about that. This pisses me the fuck off. Because, now first off, some of you guys think Lena's crazy. She's a porn star or whatever.
She is crazy, and she's not a porn star. She hosts porn stars on her show with you. Otherwise, no one would watch you guys, because you guys are disgusting looking. And Lena is terrible. I covered this in the Patreon. I accidentally stumbled across one of her scenes in the Reddit. Someone posted it, and I accidentally saw about 1.5 seconds of her performing, and I was like, ugh, what the fuck? She looks so awkward and stupid. And everything about her is gross. And this is why her Jason Love scene failed. She's just terrible. She's not a star. And the 16 is definitely not a star. I mean, look at the 16. He's got his beard dyed jet black like Tom Jones. He looks like a freak. He looks like Matthew McGrory, Tiny Firefly. Okay? And that's actually an insult to Matthew McGrory, so I apologize, rest in peace, but I mean, Matthew McGrory's not the one doing porn. If he was, then I would, I'd have a problem with that, but this is what the 16 looks like exactly. I mean, he's just absolutely hideous, and he thinks people enjoy, and look at this hair. Look at the Trumpian swoosh.
Lena is the most tame, normal fucking girl on the face of the earth. Why does Lena feel some type of way? He's not wrong. He's not wrong that Lena definitely probably feels some type of way, but you want to know why? Ooh, this is the juicy part. Because there's been multiple times where Sharp, arguably under the influence of alcohol, when we're filming Plug Talk episodes at the office, there's been a couple different times where the girls who work for Plug Talk have had some shit said to them by him that was inappropriate, that was not great, that we didn't like. Those girls who work for Plug Talk, you know how you guys right now you're thinking who? Well, we love them. They're amazing. They're so great as workers and shit. They're fantastic. And I want nothing but respect to be coming towards them at any given time. They don't need to get hit on. They don't need somebody to use the B word towards them. They don't need anyone giving them a hard time. This is a workplace. It's not appropriate for the workplace. And I believe that point has kind of been made to Sharp, probably not from me, but from, Josh or Laura or wherever. I feel like people have probably, mentioned this to him, that it's there's just a way that you don't act in the workplace.
Wow, so instead of Lena or the 16 confronting Sharp personally about this, like human beings, they had Josh, the sass god, do it. Or this stupid bitch named Laura. I don't know who she is, but... so I thought that was pretty funny that Sharp called someone a bitch, and they hate him for it.
You know how much fucking money this rich bitch got in the bank? She don't gotta do all that. I'll buy you a nice...
I mean, if the workplace at No Jumper is so safe, why was everyone harassing Dijon about his gaiety? It doesn't make any sense. And in that interview that she did with Jala and the 16, when they're talking about Sharp, she didn't mention that she didn't appreciate the way that Sharp treated her girls. When Jala asked her about Sharp, she just said that she didn't, basically just didn't like him. is all really she said. She didn't say that he was rude to her friends. So she had a predisposition to hate Sharp Rob. And so Sharp's absolutely right. She just straight up didn't like him. She thought that she was better than him, which I don't believe she's better than anyone. I think she's absolutely disgusting. And I think she's a terrible mother. But anyway, so they're saying that referring to women as bitches in the workplace is out of bounds, but they almost arguably encourage people to make fun of the gay, to make fun of Dijon Paul. So for the 16 to say that he's just protecting his workplace and that Lena just is so normal, no, Lena hates Rob, and she is not normal. I think she's a psychopath, okay? And if anyone's curious about the harassment of Dijon Paul, go ahead and check out the Patreon link in description. I've got a long episode up about the harassment of Spicy Brown Mustard Paul. So moving on to the next clip, this is going to be an IG post from the 16 of Nashua. The following day, he makes this post. And he really doubles down on his disrespect and his hate campaign towards Sharp Rob. Now, what you guys need to understand is that the 16 has always secretly hated Sharp Rob. We heard this from Yuri. Yuri already disclosed this information. The 16 he never liked Sharp, and so he was waiting for an opportunity to get rid of him, and he couldn't do it up until now because Sharp was so loyal to him. And so when Sharp's numbers fell off, the 16 probably felt stuck with him because he's like, well, if I fire this guy, everyone's going to hate me because he was so loyal. But now that Sharp Rob has said something negative about Lena the Plug, this gives the 16 an excuse to unleash all of the hatred that has been bottled up over the years. He's been waiting to say this stuff for so long. Now he finally can. Look at this.
Going down for long ass periods of time, even after they cease to be profitable. And all I really want is just a little smidge of creative control to try to keep the ship being steered in the right direction. And so often, I'm told that I'm the problem. Well, I promise you this. I will continue to put on more hosts and build more characters. And when they leave, and they get salty, and they cry, and complain, and they play the victim, I will persevere. And the audience will continue to become smarter and smarter and realize more and more that they are being fed a load of bullshit by people who just couldn't cut it. 22 stick for president. Let's go.
So now that Sharp says he's quitting, now he can't cut it. Okay.
It's clear that his time was over and that, it just wasn't pulling the numbers like the way they used to. I felt like me holding my tongue over and over and over when the whole world was going at him, and I had infinite opportunities to make content out of him and to be critical of him. And, it was just like obvious that there was shit that was worth criticizing. And over and over and over, I neglected those opportunities out of respect. And apparently that wasn't good enough. All it took was one YouTube video, which by the way has been removed from YouTube, to make him...
So the video that Sharp crashed out over and has been crying about has been removed because Sharp himself put in a false copyright strike against Big Chat Small World's YouTube channel and got the video taken down. What? Now I've got a huge problem with this, and I want to talk for a moment about fair use. Fair use is it's a doctrine that allows the limited use of copyrighted material without the copyright holder's permission. Specifically, when you transform the original content into something new that's new content that serves a totally different purpose than the original content, that's called transformative purpose. And that is allowed under fair use. And we've seen this many times. Did you follow the Brendan Schaub thing with that YouTuber Unique that won his lawsuit against Brendan Schaub? Brendan Schaub sued this YouTuber Unique, and he lost his lawsuit, and the YouTuber won because it was fair use.
However, as we all predicted, Brendan would ultimately fail in his pursuit to bully and intimidate Kyle, resulting in a summary judgment against him, ending his 2-year lawsuit. United States District Judge Mary McElroy concluded, weighing the factors together with the instant circumstances, the court concludes that Mr. Swindell's use of the copyrighted material is fair. 3 of the 4 statutory factors weigh in Mr. Swindell's favour, and Mr. Swindell's use of the copyrighted material serves as a public benefit.
So I want to make something very clear here to all the creators out there that are worried about people copyright striking their stuff, even though they're transforming the content and repurposing it into their own, making it protected by fair use. I just want you guys to know that if you get a copyright strike, you can do a counter notification which forces the person striking you to file a lawsuit against you within 10 days. And if they don't, then they're fucked. Because YouTube will put the strike on their channel for misusing the copyright strike system that they have in place. They don't want people abusing this.
See, the way it works is if you're a copyright holder, sure you can issue a takedown notice like Brendan did, but then if the other party hits back with a counter notification, which basically says, I don't agree with this takedown, the copyright holder, which was Thick Boy Productions in this case, then has 10 days to prove to YouTube that they're actually taking legal action.
So while we're on this subject of this Sharp sending a copyright strike to this small creator because he didn't like what he had to say, I want to show you someone who's been threatening me with copyright strikes. And this person is known as none other than Poetic Menyango Jala.
What?
And this is what he had to say.
Right, like, cause one nigga, and who does videos on me and shit, right? Like, is he used my clips, but he only has 2 videos where my clips he used is more than like 30 seconds, right? Like, I'm just waiting for him to drop like one more video where he used like one of my clips that's more than 30 seconds, right? So then I can have the 3 I need to clap his channel and get him out of here.
So this 30-second rule that Chala is talking about is amazingly stupid. That's not how it works. It's not clear-cut how it works. Fair use is a legal defense, right? So if Jala, if you strike my channel, I will definitely counter, and then you will have 30 days to file a lawsuit, or you will get a strike. Do you understand?
What?
And the fact that you say that if you like the commentary that's being said about you, then you'll allow the fair use, but if you don't like the opinions of the commentator, then you'll strike their channel down. That's malicious, okay? That actually solidifies my case against you.
Yo, make your content, document what happened, and give your opinion. But if you lying, and I know that you know you lying, and you know you lying, but you just lying to get this content off, oh, nigga, oh, it's a strike.
So Jala is so stupid that he just admitted malicious intent on copyright striking someone. He's not striking anyone for using his stuff. He's striking them because he doesn't like what they have to say. That's actually gonna lose him any case that he... I mean, Jala is monumentally stupid. The fact that you're gonna wait until I have 3 videos with more than 30 seconds so that you can eliminate my channel just shows that you have malicious intent, okay? Do you understand? You're a very stupid person. And the craziest thing, Judge, is that this guy does exactly what I do. Look, he's paused on someone else's content right now that he's commentating on. So I don't understand what he's crying about, Your Honor. And so when Sharp struck Big Chat Small World's channel down, the Big Chat Small World panicked and deleted the video without... He didn't know. He didn't speak with me first. I would have told him to counter it, and then Sharp would be told by YouTube, hey, if you're sure about this, then you're going to have to file a lawsuit, which Sharp is not in a position to do. He's unemployed. He's got to pay for this apartment in LA. He's got, all these kids. He ain't buying no lawyers or nothing like that. So, Sharp, this is a message to you. You will not be striking anyone anymore. Do you understand? I actually want someone to sue me so that I can win and make a bunch of content out of it, and I think it would be great for my career. So if anyone thinks that I'm not transforming the content enough, go ahead and strike me, see what happens. So getting back to this Sharp situation, so the 16's always hated Sharp, but he had to wait for the opportunity to turn on him, just like he did with Comparator. He had always hated Comparator and Sharp, but he had to wait for them to slip up before he could disproportionately pile on a bunch of hatred. So he's been dealing with these people that he hates that are just showing him unwavering loyalty, so he can't really get rid of them at that point because he'll look like a giant dickhead. But now that they showed one flash of disloyalty, now it gives him an opportunity to unleash all of the things that he's ever wanted to say about them. And that's what he's done, and that's what he's doing here with Sharp. He's just like, Sharp didn't even quit. Sharp just said, I need a fucking break from all this shit. I got too many bitches to worry about to fucking be dealing with this shit. But the 16 doesn't care. He's using this as an opportunity to separate from Sharp, and he's doing way too much. Even the Reddit says that Adam sucks for this. I mean, it's just totally immature. It's inappropriate. I mean, it's just really shitty. Everyone in that building it has this coming. I mean, Brick, his days are numbered. Lush, his days are numbered. I mean, what you guys need to understand is that the 16 doesn't give a fuck about you guys. And if I'm keeping it 100, you guys don't like him either. You guys are all just a bunch of fake fucking pussies, okay? And so this video is getting really long. I think I'm going to cap this video here, and then I'm going to make more videos and more of like a, I mean, there's too much. This video is going to be like 45 minutes long. So I'm going to cap it here, and I'll see you guys on the next video where I'm going to be going over Almighty Dodson, Lush, the 16, and fucking someone else I can't remember. They're all going to be making fun of Sharp and revealing all the embarrassing secrets they know about him and all the private texts. They're all going to be shown. And I'd love to cover that for you next video. So make sure you're subbed. I'll see you guys on the next one.
Just took her call.
Un griego muy danone es un griego que le gusta a toda tu familia. Hermoso y nutritivo para que tus hijos quieran repetir. Prueba un griego muy danone.
Her car and dip. And so she ends up back with pea stain.
And because the officer gets her the keys to the car, and the car is effectively in her possession. So for a moment, people think, this is it. This is finally it. And somehow, she ends up back with Preston anyway. Not because she didn't have options, because by now, options were everywhere. Her employer offered help, offered housing, offered clothes, offered transportation, offered support, offered a new bank account Preston couldn't access. Her employer offered to come pick her up immediately, not eventually, immediately. And every time another door opened, she somehow found herself back standing in front of the same one she was trying to leave.
Okay, so why it's important that they went to this hospital far away? Probably because he has a pattern of this, for one. But even though the state's pressing charges, they weren't able to do anything. So Preston and Callie end up back at a hotel.
Tennessee police can't do anything.
And then they start arguing because Callie wants to get on live and talk. And so she gets on live, he gets irritated, kicks her cat, Twinkle, out in the hallway, and then kicks her out in the hallway. So she's got to go get an Airbnb. She has nowhere to go. She's on live. She's begging for money. She's, distraught, everything. But she also kind of seems like she's under some substances. So then she's like sitting outside of Kroger, lets Twinkle out to go pee-pee, and Twinkle don't come back.
To wait for my cat to return. Y'all told me to let her out. I thought I'm literally being trolled by people. I don't know what's right and what's wrong, and I don't know what to do in this situation. I've never been stranded in the middle of a city. I've never dealt with this in my entire life, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. The kitty's gonna be fine. She's gonna come back to me. I know she will. I know she will. I know she will, and I will wait here, and I will search here, and I will do anything I can to find her if I can. Okay? You don't need to buy me a lift. Do I have enough money? I don't know how much money I have. I don't know. I let her run around a little bit so she could go to the bathroom.
And so she's all upset, and she's like crying and freaking out, and she's like, hey, everyone in the chat is trolling me, which like low-key they were, which is really cruel. But she is already having a bad day, but she's also stupid. Like, why she keep going back to Preston? So she has a follower come get her and drive her around, take her to the Airbnb or something. Then her boss gets her an Uber, gets the Airbnb for her, and Preston ends up coming back. I'm gonna read what the boss said. The boss was pissed.
Dear Lord, I'm her boss. I've offered her her own effing apartment. Told her I would furnish it and everything. Matter of fact, about 6 hours after this video, she Ubered to my office and I took her to an Airbnb. She said she was tired, so I left her to sleep, and when I came back to check on her later, she was gone with him. Her location was off when I left, and he knew nothing about this Airbnb, so she clearly, purposely turned her location back on and left with him willingly. Yes, she's in a bad situation. Yes, he's AF. Physically, mentally, verbally, all of the above. He belongs in a trash can somewhere. But she's also using her situation to get y'all's money. Trust me, she's got plenty in the bank. She could go wherever she wanted. See what I'm saying? And that is the point where the internet started changing. Not because people stopped caring, because they cared so much, they were exhausting themselves. Because rescue fatigue is real, especially when every rescue attempt feels like watching somebody walk back into a burning building carrying the ladder you handed them. Then we Also have to talk about the allegations surrounding benzodiazepines. And these remain allegations, public allegations, claims from people reportedly close to the situation. These are claims discussed publicly by people involved in helping her. Nothing more, nothing less. If those allegations are true, the story becomes even sadder. Coming from a recovering addict, checks out to me, looks like it, because now we're not talking about one trap, we're talking about trauma, housing insecurity, financial dependence, isolation, public scrutiny, a significantly older partner, and potentially addiction standing in the middle of all of it. The internet spent years asking why won't she leave? And maybe the better question was, what exactly would she have had to fight through to leave? Because those are very different conversations. And maybe that's the tragedy of this part of the storyline. People begged her to walk through these exits, and somehow every road still led back to Peace Name Preston. For years, the internet had a checklist. Get Callie out of the mold house, get Callie transportation, get Callie money, get Callie a job, get Callie an apartment, get Callie away from Peace Name Preston. Simple, right? At least that's what everybody thought, because one by one, those things actually started happening. The house was gone, the car existed, the apartment existed, the job existed, the support existed, and somehow the situation still felt exactly the same. That realization hit people harder than almost anything else in this entire story, because for years, every conversation online came back to the same thing. She just needs resources. Then the resources arrived. She just needs support. Support arrived. Well, she just needs somewhere to go. Places to go appeared. Okay, well, she needs an opportunity. Opportunities appeared. And yet somehow, every road seemed to circle back to the same place. Peace Name Preston. By this point, Callie had moved into her own apartment, an actual apartment. She had a front door. She had a lease. A place that wasn't a hotel room and wasn't the mold house. And for a brief moment, people were genuinely happy for her, because this was supposed to be the beginning of the success story. This was the apartment reveal. This was the we made it out girl chapter. It was supposed to be the part where she buys plants and thrifted furniture and argues with strangers online about where to put the couch. Instead, people started noticing something strange. Publicly, Callie was increasingly presenting herself as single, like the relationship was over. Peace Name ain't around no more. Fresh start, new chapter. Then viewers started spotting him in videos, and there were discussions online about videos where people believed they could see him in the background of the apartment. And according to those discussions, some videos were removed and then later reposted with him edited or cropped out. Whether every single claim was accurate almost became secondary to the bigger issue here. People no longer trusted what they were being told. That trust had already been damaged by all the other stuff, the fundraiser, the controversies, the hotels, the disappearing money, and the constant cycle of leaving and returning. And now people felt like they were being asked to ignore what they believed, what they were seeing with their own eyes. Hello? It was so frustrating, and that frustration grew quickly, not because people wanted access to her private relationships, but because a lot of people seriously believed that they had spent years helping someone escape a situation they viewed as dangerous. And finding out that the situation may not actually be over just felt devastating for people that actually cared about her. Then came the apartment questions. How was the rent being paid? Who was living there? Was Peace Name Preston even contributing financially? Was social media income paying for it? Was donation money involved? Was any of the fire fundraiser money involved? Because by this point, people still did not feel like they understood what had happened with the previous fundraising efforts. I mean, the car money, the hotel money, the moving money, the fire money, where's it at? Like, we need to run an audit. Questions that had never fully gone away suddenly came roaring back. And whether those suspicions were fair or unfair almost stopped mattering. Suspicion had become the default setting. Then came the substance allegations. This is probably one of the more sensitive parts of the entire story, because unlike fundraisers or apartments or car titles, this is not something strangers on the internet can verify from public records. Public allegations began circulating that Callie was using benzodiazepines, Xanax, Valium, similar medications, and Callie publicly denied these accusations. But then screenshots and messages that were allegedly connected to conversations with her former employer started circulating online. And those messages included alleged concerns surrounding withdrawal symptoms if she separated from Preston. If authentic, the implication is significant, because withdrawal
withdrawal is not recreational use. Withdrawal is dependence. And there were also public allegations and speculation online that Preston may have been involved in providing those substances. Those claims remain allegations. They have not been proven publicly. But if true, they dramatically change how people interpret the relationship dynamics they believe they were watching. Financial dependence is one thing. Housing dependence is another. Transportation dependence is another. Chemical dependence enters an entirely different category, especially considering the public concerns that already existed surrounding age, vulnerability, and control when the relationship began. Around the same time, viewers frequently accused Callie of appearing intoxicated during live streams. She had slurred speech, confusion, erratic behaviors, moments where she appeared significantly impaired.
I would be the best mother. Don't disagree with me, you know I would. Not with you. Good baby. Because everything always has to do with you and I can never have anything.
You can never have it. Oh man, what do you need? Pills?
No.
That's all you're looking for right now.
Yeah, the med store we filled fucking yesterday.
It's not yours. And not for you.
That you started getting for me.
Callie,
That's why you don't.
I have something to say. So, for everybody, don't mute it, okay? They're saying...
In response to criticism, she later completed an at-home drug test during live streams and videos, and the test reportedly showed THC. But critics immediately pointed out that the test shown publicly did not appear to include benzodiazepines, which were the substances most people had actually been discussing. Nobody cares about weed. Instead of ending the argument, the testing simply created another one. Then came health discussions, and honestly, this is where the internet started getting a little bit more messier, because somewhere along the line, legitimate concern started blending together with armchair diagnoses. One condition that had existed publicly since almost the beginning of her content was the emetophobia, and it's an intense fear of vomiting. And longtime viewers generally considered this one of the most consistent and believable things that she had discussed publicly over the year. The fear appeared repeatedly throughout her content and appeared to affect food, routines, stress, daily functioning. Other conditions generated significantly more debate. Discussions surrounding tics became a major point of contention online. Some viewers believed her immediately, but others questioned inconsistency in the presentation.
By the way, according to the internet. So yeah, enjoy my cock, enjoy my fake ticks. Yeah, I bet you wish. Yeah, boy, you wish. I need a fucking knot. George? Why am I fucking triggered? If your cats are meowing back at me, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna read the comments. When did these come? Fuck you, Chucky. Cock pussy. Okay, these came.
Meanwhile, what many people did consistently observe was shaking, leg bouncing, handshaking, visible anxiety, restlessness, and whether people interpreted those behaviors as anxiety, trauma responses, medication effects, withdrawal, neurodivergent, or something else entirely, often depended on which version of the story they believed. Then came conversations surrounding eating problems. And YouTube's really strict on this, so I don't want to talk too much, and I don't want to criticize somebody who was struggling, but they were worried because of the emetophobia and maybe things that she was posting online about different things, maybe like physical image and wanting to lose, you know. And others believed it was like because she had a fear surrounding the food because of her emetophobia. Trauma has never cared too much about staying inside one diagnostic box, and neither does addiction. But honestly, I think this is like a part of the story that's important, and also again proves another part where people started to struggle with the ability to separate individual problems from each other. Is it trauma? Is it addiction? Is it manipulation? Is it mental illness? Is it survival mode? Are we in denial? Is this a dependency? Is this just a public figure losing control of her own narrative? And the answer was probably
probably some amounts of all of it because human beings are so messy. Victims can lie. They lie all the time. Traumatized people are one of the most unreliable narrators. Addiction changes your decision making bad. Mental illness changes your decision making. None of those things erase harm though, and they don't erase accountability. And none of those things automatically erase the victimization either. That's the uncomfortable part. The internet, y'all really like to think about the heroes and the villains, and this is another part of the storyline that just is going to refuse to cooperate for you, because by now the audience wasn't watching a rescue story. They're just watching gravity. Every time it looked like things were improving, something pulled everything back towards the same center point, and eventually the internet just started realizing something terrifying. You can crowdfund an apartment, you can crowdfund a car, you can crowdfund a security deposit, and maybe groceries, but you cannot crowdfund healing. You can't crowdfund sobriety. You can't crowdfund trauma recovery, and you cannot force someone to leave a situation they are not ready or able to leave. And that may be the hardest lesson this entire story had to teach people, because sometimes getting exactly what you asked for doesn't solve the problem. Sometimes it just reveals what the problem actually was all along. So we have reached the part of the rabbit hole that actually physically makes my stomach hurt, not because of the internet drama or the fundraising scams or the timelines and stuff. It hurts because somewhere along this way, this story stopped being about mold and GoFundMes and dysfunctional relationships and became a conversation about whether a young woman deserved empathy based on whether people thought she had been honest enough beforehand. And that is a terrifying place for any story to end up. So, by April 2025, Callie's credibility with large portions of the internet was hanging on by...
You can send a kid to camp. Give today.
By a thread. The fire had happened, the money questions had exploded, the refund arguments were ongoing, the audience had become investigators, every timeline was being dissected, every dollar was being audited, every inconsistency was being screenshotted. People weren't watching content anymore, they were watching evidence. Then the night in Memphis happened, and according to Callie's original account, the night started with something stupidly normal, a phone charger. Her charging port allegedly stopped working correctly, her phone kept cycling on and off, and the portable charger she had available was difficult to use while holding the phone. So in her mind, the solution was simple. Walk to a gas station and buy another charger. It was around midnight, P-Stain Preston was asleep, and according to her, he did not want to drive her to the store, so she decided to just go herself. She lived near several gas stations. It wasn't a huge deal to her, except it became one. She walked to a gas station, realized she had forgotten her wallet, no cash, no identification, no money, no functioning phone, no GPS, no way to call for help, no way to order a car, no way to pull up directions. She's just trying to remember landmarks well enough to make it home.
It was my charging port on my phone was not working whatsoever, and I couldn't get it to work. I had to use this portable charger that you put on the back of your phone. I didn't want to use that because it was hard for me to hold my phone and use that at the same time. And then there was this glitch where it kept on turning on and showing me the Apple screen and then turning back off, and I was just like, ooh. So I freaked out about it, and I was like, okay, I just need to go get a new charger because Twinkle always tears up my chargers. Twinkle's my cat, for those of you who don't know. And my boyfriend wanted to sleep. He was tired. It was around 12 a.m. Reasonably, he's not going to drive me to a gas station to get a charger. But luckily, and a little unluckily, I live by a good few gas stations. Therefore, I decided to go on foot. I walked to a marathon, and that's whenever I realized I forgot my wallet. That I didn't have any money on me, or my ID on me, nothing. And as you know, my phone is not working.
There she saw a Circle K nearby and headed toward it because it looked busy. Lights, employees, customers, cars moving in and out, very public, people, safety. Especially, it's the middle of the night in Memphis. But that is where she said she met an older homeless man carrying food and pizza in a crate. And according to her account, he asked if she was homeless. Which, like, girl, like, don't talk to strangers. But she said no. And she told him that she had left after being angry with her boyfriend. And that's like the worst thing to say too if you're talking to strangers, especially a homeless person, a homeless man.
I went to Circle K because I know that place was like busy at night, people running in and out. Then I met this 50-year-old man who was holding pizza and stuff and put it in a crate. He asked me if I was homeless. I said, no, I'm not homeless. I just left because I got mad at my boyfriend.
So he began to
encouraging her to go somewhere with him. And this is where a lot of the internet commentary turned into, why would you do that? And as someone who has struggled with addiction myself and has spent time around addiction, trauma, chaos, and survival mode living, that question kind of bothers me. I know, in hindsight, but for real, people in survival mode do not make survival decisions. People under the influence do not make sober decisions. People who have normalized danger stop recognizing danger. People who have spent years living in instability often develop a very different risk calculator than everyone else. What looks insane to outsiders often feels completely normal when chaos is your baseline. And according to Callie's own statements, she was already afraid of him. She admits that she was scared. She says that herself. But she also believed she could leave if she needed to, run if she needed to, escape if she needed to. And a lot of survivors tell versions of that exact story. I'll leave if it gets weird. I'll leave if it gets dangerous. The problem is that danger rarely ever announces itself politely enough to give you that chance. So, according to her story, her and that homeless man eventually ended up in an apartment where other people were present. Alcohol was involved. She said that she was encouraged to drink. She said that she was mocked for refusing to smoke, that Whitney Houston. At one point, she claimed she looked away from her drink and thought she saw something dropped into it, but she wasn't sure enough to accuse anyone, so she drank it anyway.
He immediately just started trying to get me to go somewhere with him. And me having nothing to do, being angry at my boyfriend, I'm like, whatever. So I made the dumb decision to go with him wherever he wanted to go. I was like, because he swore to me it wasn't far, and I was scared of him. But I just was like, he says it's not far, and, I can run if I need to. Well, at least that's what I thought. Anyways, he takes me to this place, and I sit on the staircase until his friend lets me into the apartment. Now we're in this little apartment building, and they're giving me alcohol. I look away from my drink for a second, and I'm talking to this lady, the lady who owns that apartment. They are making fun of me for not smoking. But I look away, and in the corner of my eye, it looked like he dropped something in my drink. But I wasn't sure, and I wasn't gonna, accuse. I drank it anyway.
I'm sober now, and I have to say that decision horrifies sober people, addiction counselors. Hear stories like that every day. It's just two different worlds. According to her account, she became intoxicated quickly, possibly more intoxicated than she expected, possibly intoxicated for reasons she did not understand. And then according to her, the situation escalated. She described, trigger warning, unwanting touching, attempts for physical contact and kissing. She did not consent to this. She describes freezing. She didn't want to escalate the situation. She didn't want to anger somebody she already feared. She was just trying to survive the next 5 minutes before worrying about the next hour. So eventually she convinced him to walk toward an area she recognized, somewhere she could orient herself and possibly get away, because by her own account, she was intoxicated, disoriented, and scared.
Soon after he started rushing me out of the apartment, he wanted to leave, and he told me that makes him very. He said he was just looking at me, and he was as the cement. Made it take forever to go to the hotel. I was walking there with him like a dumbass, but I was at a point where I was scared to run. Oh, did I mention that I was really, really drunk at this point, and he bought me alcohol, and I was like really drunk at that point. So I was not in my right mind whatsoever. That's the only thing I can say is probably the reason I was gonna walk with him, because I didn't know how to get back, and I didn't feel safe walking alone. Over there, he forced me to do the Glock, pulling my hair, cussing me out, calling me his bitch, forcing my head down until I got physically sick, facing my phobia. But he slapped me, because I tried to stop at that point, and he slapped me. And he was basically ripping my hair out at that point. He removed my clothes after I begged him not to, but quickly told me to put them back on. And then we start walking again. We're back on the way to the motel. I'm still very intoxicated. He brings me to these bushes where I had went to Walgreens earlier to go to the bathroom, and that's also where I did my ATM withdrawal. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I had my clothing forcefully removed. He's into ass. was like 6 foot. He kept on telling me to bend over against a concrete wall. I was really drunk. I fell, and I got hurt whenever I fell. He started bitching at me for that as well. He attempted, you know what, on my butt, and then got really mad at me because I was short. Anyways, I left my Walgreens bag in the bushes that he rushed me out of because he was so paranoid. Then he, on the way to the motel, because we are still on the way to the motel, he finds this little dumpster that's like, you know, encaged with wood. He brings me in there. I'm thinking that it's just because, you know, he's gonna light up his little, and, you know, meanwhile peer pressuring me to do it. And I know that y'all think I do that type of stuff, but I don't, and I won't, and I never will. And they were calling me so lame for it. I did not fall for peer pressure a single time. Anyways, inside of that little dumpster enclosure, he ends up trying to attempt another, you know, on me. Every time that I tell him no, I get cussed out. Every time that I tell him, hey, I don't want to do this, I am getting cussed out, and I'm getting grabbed, and I am getting, you know, just forced to do stuff that I don't want to do. And I was afraid of him, so I gave in to a couple of things with him because I was afraid of him. I'd never met him before. I was afraid to run because I didn't know, because I was drunk and he wasn't. And the chances of me falling and him getting me seemed more dangerous than me being with him. So that's why I didn't run. Anyways, he dropped his little glass. He wanted me to look for it, but I didn't have a phone, so I couldn't shine a flashlight. He had a little flashlight on him. Turns out while he was looking for it, he accidentally stepped on it and started cussing me out because I made him break his. I told him that I would pay him back for it. So now we're on the way to another ATM so that I can pay him back for it because he is so angry with me, and I am terrified that he's either gonna me or I don't know what he's gonna do. I was withdrawing more money for him. Oh, this shit makes me mad. This money was coming from my savings. This was money that I needed to pay rent because I don't have money except for money for rent. But I'm doing this because I'm kind of fearing for my life. So more money out of the ATM for this dude. Paid him back, and then we finally walked to the motel. He only spent $80 on the hotel. Meanwhile, he had like $250. I tried to get him a few nights there because he was sleeping on a church porch, and I felt bad for him. Anyways, we get to the motel. My dumbass, I walk into the room. He's insulting the room about how much he hates it, how horrible it is. I lay on the bed because I've been walking for hours, and I get pinned down and choked. Clothes forcefully removed, cussing at me to give him a little of the glog log again, and I tried, I did my best, but that wasn't good enough. Penetration, no lip, or self, either, because I was not into him. I was scared of him. So that's whenever he raped me, and it lasted for about 20 minutes till he flipped me over and bended me over, and he did it in the ass again. No, that shit's painful, and it was really big. It was painful. He ended up moving back to the other hole. This is gonna get removed from TikTok too, where he exploded, you know what, into the forbidden area. No protection. But it was over then, yay, and now he's calling me annoying, and so anyways, we're walking back, because he's not even gonna stay at the hotel that I got him. He didn't like it enough, he'd rather sleep on the porch. He wants to go to Goodwill, I tell him I'm going home after. I'm trying to withdraw more money from the ATM, my card's locked, the card's disabled. But my boyfriend sees the transactions that are being attempted to be made. He shows up to the location. I stayed at that ATM for about 15 minutes, hoping he would see the transactions. The moment he showed up, I told him everything. He called the police. Dude immediately got detained, and I went into a crisis center. But yeah, my card's fucked up, can't use it anymore, and I have no access to my money. And that's it.
Here comes the part of the story that the internet immediately grabbed onto. The money. According to Callie, she withdrew approximately $200 from an ATM to get him a hotel room because she believed that if he had somewhere to sleep, she could safely leave afterwards. Later, she stated that she withdrew additional money for him as the night continued. Now, I'm not gonna speculate Callie, but coming from a recovering addict, that sounds like the additional money was for rugs. But anyway, $250 total. And the problem was not the amount, the problem was the context. Because only weeks earlier, she had reportedly been asking followers for help paying rent, help to feed her pets, help to buy groceries, and help to survive. And now suddenly, she's got her savings money, her rent money, her emergency money, and enough money to withdraw hundreds of dollars in cash to give to a homeless man so he can sleep for the night. So immediately the audience started pulling the story apart, not because of the inconsistencies. Was she out because she needed her charger or because she was angry with Preston? Did she forget her wallet or did she have access to the debit card the entire time? Was the money stolen or was the account merely frozen? Why did details shift between videos? Why was the longer version deleted and replaced with a shorter one? I will always believe victims, but those did become the questions online. I do think those are the wrong questions, but here's the uncomfortable truth. People can lie about money and still be a victim of... People can manipulate others and still be assaulted. People can struggle with addiction and still be assaulted. People can have inconsistencies in their story and still be... Someone can make reckless decisions and still be... Those things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, addiction often makes all those things more likely to happen simultaneously, if I'm being completely honest about my own perspective. Yo, I believe her. Not necessarily every detail exactly as she recalls it, not necessarily every time stamped to the minute, but I do believe something happened that she did not consent to. Yes, I do believe that. Absolutely. Because if someone is heavily intoxicated, possibly drugged, scared, vulnerable, and unable to safely leave a situation, I do not view that as consent, and I never will. And maybe part of that comes from my own experiences, and I'm projecting, but maybe part of that comes from understanding addiction culture. And as a former addict, and I know enough former addicts to know this, there are moments people look back on years later and realize they weren't participants. They were vulnerable, they were impaired, they were being used, and the people around them knew it. And that is what this part of the storyline feels like to me. Peace stain, this man, a lot of people. And it makes me very sad watching how many people simply ran out of empathy by this point, and how some people outright accused her of fabricating everything. Others argued she brought it on herself. And people were just focused entirely on the financial inconsistencies as well. And yeah, she did ask for help for money at the end, but I understand why, y'all. She's an addict, and I understand why people were skeptical. Years of contradictory stories will do that. Years of financial controversies will do that. Years of donation fatigue will do that. But I think some people cross the line from skepticism into cruelty, because addiction is ugly. Addiction lies. Addiction manipulates. Addiction hides things. Addiction rewrites reality. That doesn't mean people in active addiction deserve violence. It doesn't mean people deserve to be exploited. It doesn't mean people deserve to be... Those are separate conversations. By the end of the night, according to Callie's account, failed ATM transactions eventually alerted Peace Stain Preston to her location. She said she intentionally stayed near the ATM, hoping he would find her, and eventually he did. She told him what happened. Police became involved. The man was reportedly detained, and she was transported to a crisis center and underwent examination. And people online were still debating. They debated paperwork, they debated medical record numbers, they debated timelines. Some claimed the documentation looked suspicious, and others argued the forms appeared legitimate and consistent with local crisis center paperwork. But honestly, I don't think the paperwork debate was ever really about paperwork. It was about trust. And by April 2025, trust was already dead. The audience had stopped asking, did this happen? It started asking, can we believe anything she says? One question is about evidence, and one question is about whether someone had earned the right to be believed. And those are very different conversations, because the reality is this. Sometimes deeply traumatized people become unreliable narrators of their life, especially when abuse enters the picture, especially when trauma enters the picture, especially when all these things arrive at the same time. And unfortunately for Callie, that may have been exactly what was happening here. By this point in the story, the internet had spent years watching Callie survive things that should have totally broken her. The mold house, the rats, the family instability, the internet fame, the fundraisers, Peace Stain Preston, assault allegations, the money, the controversies, the breakup, the reunions. At some point, people started wondering if there even was a rock bottom. Then the Starbucks incident happened. The video spread fast. way too fast. And in the clip, Callie is visibly struggling to stay upright inside a Starbucks. Her body is bent forward, her movements are slow, her head keeps dropping, and people online immediately started comparing it to what they call the fent fold. Coming from a recovering addict, it's what it's giving. The posture, the nodding, the inability to stay fully conscious, the kind of thing people who have spent time around opiates or, we recognize it immediately. And to be clear, no one online can diagnose someone from a video. No one can say with certainty what substance was involved or whether substances were involved at all. But people who had lived around addiction looked at that video and felt something cold settle into the pit of their stomach because we recognize it. Callie later posted on Snapchat that she had attempted and was now being bullied worse than ever. Shortly afterwards, she posted another message saying that doctors told her she was lucky to be alive, but that she had failed again. Those posts led many people to believe she was referring to a suicide attempt. Later, however, she provided a different explanation. According to Callie, she had been discharged from the ICU after spending 3 days there. She said her blood sugar had dropped below 50. She said she had taken a bite of a cake pop and immediately lost consciousness. She stated she had no memory of what happened after that point. She explained that when people saw her breathing heavily in the video, it was because she had aspirated part of the cake pop and had been inhaling it into her airway. A Starbucks employee who claimed to have witnessed the event publicly commented and appeared to support portions of that explanation. The cake pop itself at least appeared to be real. Then came another explanation. According to Callie, the night before, she had mixed multiple medications with alcohol. She publicly stated she had taken Seroquel, Paxil, more propranolol than prescribed, and alcohol, and stated her EKG reportedly showed symptoms concerning enough that doctors discussed cardiac issues. And while her narrative is that she believes hypoglycemia caused the collapse, medical staff reportedly discussed the possibility that it may have been accidental.
I was released from the ICU today after being in there for 3 days. At the time this video was recorded, my blood sugar was below 50. I took a bite of my cake pop and immediately fainted. I have zero memory as to what happened afterwards, but as you can see, I'm breathing very heavy. I want to let you all know that at that time I had a cake pop in my mouth. I was inhaling it, and I'll tell you, I mixed a lot of stuff with my medication that night. I took my Seroquel, I took my Paxil. I took propranolol more than I was supposed to, and a drink. My EKG says that I was showing symptoms of a heart attack. I think the faint was from hypoglycemia. They also think it could have been an accidental.
This is the part that hurts to watch if you've been there, because addiction often sounds exactly like this. Not one explanation, 20 explanations, not lies necessarily, fragments, pieces, half truths, deflections, anything except the sentence that feels impossible to say out loud. I think I have a problem. As a recovering addict myself, I want to be careful here because I don't know what substances Callie was or wasn't using at that exact moment. I wasn't there. None of us were. But I do know what nodding looks like. I know what oversedation looks like. I know what medication stacking looks like. I know what somebody trying desperately to explain away their own impairment looks like. And I know what it looks like when somebody isn't ready to admit what everyone around them can already see. And that isn't evil. That's addiction. That's the disease. The Starbucks employee filming her became another controversy entirely. Callie felt violated, humiliated, exposed. She publicly discussed possible legal action and argued that her rights had been violated.
Starbucks, your workers really need to do better. Thank you to the doctors who saved my life. But my rights were very violated that day. So y'all should let me know how I should proceed.
Legally, filming in a public place generally is not prohibited. Morally, the conversation does get murkier because if I'm being honest, I think two things can be true at the same time. I think recording somebody in one of the worst moments of their life is cruel. And I think seeing yourself in one of the worst moments of your life can sometimes save your life. Because if I woke up and saw footage of myself unconscious in a Starbucks with a cake pop hanging out of my mouth while strangers online debated whether I was dying in real time or on drugs, that would scare me. Not because people were mean, because I would realize I wasn't hiding it anymore. The disease had become visible, public, impossible to explain away. And maybe that's why this part of the storyline hurts so much, because by now, everyone watching seemed to understand something Callie herself either couldn't admit or couldn't survive admitting yet. This wasn't getting better on its own. This wasn't stress. This wasn't just trauma. This wasn't just pea-stained Preston. This wasn't just bad luck. This was becoming life-threatening, because how much further does rock bottom go? You've survived neglect. You've survived abuse. You've survived assault. You've survived homelessness. You've survived hospitals. You've survived ICU admissions. How many warnings does one person get before the warnings stop coming? That was the question hanging over the internet after the Starbucks incident. Not anger, not judgment, fear. Real fear. Because for the first time, a lot of people stopped wondering whether Callie would ever leave Preston and started wondering whether she was going to survive long enough to get the chance. So after the K-pop incident around December of 2025, Preston was actually out of the picture. He was actually in jail, and Callie was obviously not healed, like at all. You don't spend years in survival mode, years of instability, years bouncing between hotels and police reports and fundraisers and live streams and chaos, and suddenly wake up one morning because you're pea-stain free and are just emotionally healthy because pea-stain got arrested. That's just not how trauma works.
It's insane. Not fair. How is it fair my boyfriend's in jail right now for kicking my ass last night and telling me that I should kill myself? How is that fair? How is that fair? And I'm over here, I don't have any fucking money, and I have no way to get money. He's in control.
Those fucking eyeballs, man.
Of all of my payment apps, and he's logged into my bank, and I have no money. Again. What a fuckery, dude. I didn't even press charges, the police did, bro. Hell. Wig is insane, I know, but I feel like I look better this way as far as, spicy posts. But, y'all, tell me an app that's not PayPal, that's not CashApp, that's not Venmo, and that's not direct banking like Zelle. Tell me an app I can use for payments, because I need, bro, y'all wanna see my fridge? Y'all are gonna see my fridge.
Trauma doesn't vacate the property just because somebody else does. So for the first time in a long time, Callie was alone. Or at least she was supposed to be. And Callie had said herself many times that she struggles with being alone. Honestly, a lot of traumatized people do. Silence feels unsafe, calm feels suspicious, chaos is familiar, and it starts feeling like home. And that's when Vamp Daddy got to enter the storyline. Now, before we talk about this trip to Iowa, we need to talk about who Vamp Daddy is, because this man, context really matters here. By the time Callie got into the car to go to Iowa, Vamp Daddy was not some random stranger she met at a gas station. People already knew who he was. He already had a reputation online, and it was a bad one. He had an internet presence built around being provocative, sexual, shocking, edgy, offensive, and intentionally disturbing. The name alone tells you most of what you need to know. Vamp Daddy Evil. Not Michael from accounting. Not Steve who works at Home Depot. Vamp Daddy Evil. The branding wasn't subtle here, and he leaned heavily into the image of being the creepy older guy, the scary guy, the weird guy, the I can fix him guy, the monster as a personality trait guy. He openly referred to himself as the big scary jacked guy. That wasn't an insult people gave him. That was part of the character he was, like, selling. According to people who had followed him long before Callie entered the picture, there had already been concerns about his interactions with very young women online. There had already been accusations of inappropriate conversations. There had already been accusations involving grooming behavior, accusations involving women who were barely adults. And some of these accusations remained rumors. Some remained allegations. Some exist only in screenshots and Discord conversations and internet archives. But the important part isn't proving every individual allegation. The important part is this. People were already uncomfortable with Vamp Daddy Evil before Callie ever got in his car. That matters. Because When the live stream starts and people realize this man has driven 11 hours from Iowa to Tennessee to pick up a 19-year-old girl who's just escaped Peace-Stain Preston, just survived domestic violence allegations, just survived addiction allegations, just survived psychiatric holds, just survived police involvement, homelessness, a public collapse in a Starbucks with a cake popped down her throat, and is quite obviously not in a stable place mentally, the internet and Mama Chocolate collectively loses its mind. Because healthy adults don't see that list and think, perfect girlfriend material. They just don't. That doesn't mean Callie wasn't legally an adult. She absolutely was. But vulnerability doesn't disappear on your 18th birthday. Trauma doesn't disappear on your 18th birthday. Addiction doesn't disappear on your 18th birthday. Blow up the candles, it's not going to happen. Predators know that. Healthy adults know that too. They just respond to it differently. Then comes the live stream from Vamp Daddy's car, and honestly, watching it now feels surreal. Callie is crying, talking about how she couldn't go back, talking about how she stayed in Tennessee, she would go back to Peace-Stain Preston, because that's what she had done every other time. And yes, that part broke my heart a little, because that was probably the most self-aware thing she'd said in months. She knew exactly what would happen if she stayed. She knew she would go back. So she did what trauma does best. She ran. But unfortunately, she ran directly into another problem.
Okay. Because I cried today, and I didn't want to go back, but I felt like shit, and I couldn't feel it. I was like, dude, I did this too long. Even though you hurt me, I just feel like I did this too long. I'm gonna call the police. I need to get far away, because if I'm not far away, I'm gonna end up doing the same shit I've done every time, and I'm gonna end up going back to him, and I can't.
There's some big, scary Jack's guy who's planning to kidnap you.
Jack's a guy.
He's muscular.
I know it. I thought I was just trying to make sure that's what you said.
That is what I said, but I also know you need to explain sometimes. It's okay. You know I'll teach you.
Am I being kidnapped? No, this was completely consensual. Completely consensual. Completely consensual. I'm an adult. He is an adult. I make my own decisions.
When viewers start asking questions, she repeatedly tries to reassure people she's not being kidnapped, this isn't coercion, she chose this, she wanted it, she's an adult and can make her own decisions. And honestly, I believe she believed that. I genuinely do. Consent and safety are not the same thing. Agency and vulnerability are not the same thing. Those conversations get flattened online into yes or no questions when real life is messier than that. So, Vamp Daddy Evil and Callie arrive in Iowa, and almost immediately things get super weird, super fast. Vamp starts posting sexual content involving Callie to Twitter, pictures, videos, content that was intimate enough that most creators covering the story refused to repost it. And I'm not going to repost it either. At one point, there are shower photos, fully nude, like nothing's left to the imagination, y'all. And what struck a lot of people wasn't necessarily the content itself. It was Callie's face, because she never looked like somebody participating. She never looked like somebody enduring. Again, that's my interpretation, not fact, interpretation. But I know I'm not the only one who saw it. At one point, he reportedly carved his initials into her chest. Again, some people saw ownership. Some people saw the internet argued about which one it was, because the internet argues about everything. But then comes one of the strangest moments in this entire saga. Callie posts a cleaning video at Vamp Daddy Evil's house. Of course she does. Because somehow, no matter where she goes, she always ends up cleaning somebody else's mess. She walks through his apartment showing mountains of trash, pizza boxes, containers, garbage, no furniture, a mattress on the floor, chocolate milk bottles everywhere, Domino's boxes everywhere. The trash is basically functioning as furniture at this point. And I genuinely wish I was exaggerating. She jokes that she's scared of Domino's and chocolate milk now, because that's apparently most of what he consumes. She said she had to clean with Dollar General supplies because she only had $40. By the end, she had 13 left. She didn't have a broom. She used a scrub brush to sweep the floor. And watching it just feels weirdly familiar, because suddenly we're back in the mold house again. Different state, different man, same story. She's cleaning another man's disaster while the internet watches again.
Motherfuckers come with me to clean the infamous Bam Daddy Evil's bedroom with only Dollar General supplies. We're recycling all of this cardboard. There's like 1,000 fucking pizza boxes. What the hell, man? I don't know what this tool is, but I'm putting it in the kitchen. If y'all want more, there are a couple of other rooms I can do. There's just no furniture here. There was a cute little before and after. I had to sweep with a, scrub brush because there was no broom or vacuum. And my budget was only $40, so now I only have $13 left. I didn't know he drank so much chocolate milk, but now I know he drinks a lot of chocolate milk and eats a lot of Domino's. Which I'm scared of Domino's and chocolate milk, and it's not wonderful. I guess he likes ice cream too. A lot of these are just gonna be befores and afters at that point because there was just too much shit to pick up. I'll make sure to post more cleaning videos of this because make sure you stay till the end because the after results are fucking beautiful. But you can kind of just see that the trash was basically the furniture, which now I'm kind of sad because I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna lay on the mattress on the floor and have panic attacks now. Yeah, thank you for being here, by the way. You're about to see the after result. If you're worried for my safety, I'm safe. I promise. I'm just 10 hours away, and it's really scary for me. But here's the before, and here's the after. I really hope you enjoyed. If you want more cleaning videos in here, let me know because there is a shit ton more work to be done. Bye-bye! More work to be done. Bye-bye! More work to be done. Bye-bye! More work to be done. Bye-bye!
Then people noticed something in the video, the hand gesture. The internet starts circulating claims that she may have been using the domestic hand signal. That remains speculation. Nobody knows. She's never confirmed it. But the fact that people believed it tells you everything about the atmosphere surrounding the situation. People were terrified, not uncomfortable, not concerned, truly terrified, because by this point this wasn't feeling like internet drama. It started to feel like the opening 20 minutes of a true crime documentary. Then comes the live stream, and this is seriously one of the hardest watches in the entire timeline because she doesn't seem angry anymore. She doesn't seem defensive anymore. She doesn't seem argumentative anymore. She seems gone. Not physically gone, emotionally gone. Like someone turned the lights off and forgot to tell the body. She's slurring. She's exhausted. She's dissociating. At least that's what it looks like to me. As somebody who has been around addiction, the look is familiar. Painfully familiar. At one point, she openly admits she's been drinking. She openly admits she's mixed alcohol with medication, hydroxyzine, sleep medication, prescription medication, alcohol, and she started showing pill bottles on camera, talking about dresses still attached to the house that burned down and stuff like that. Just talking in circles. And if she's admitting to drinking on her medication, there's so much more that she's on, because that's just how addicts work. Drifting in and out of conversations, and I'm not trying to diagnose her, but as somebody in recovery, we know what sedation and intoxication looks and sounds like. I know what someone trying desperately to stay awake looks like. And then comes the clip that a lot of people still talk about, where she asks for one more, and he tells her no. And of course, people immediately start speculating. Another drink? Benzos? Medication? Nobody knows. Nobody outside that room will ever know, but I'm pretty sure. I believe that I know.
Mad at you.
Oh, yeah.
Where's my phone?
You're not getting it. I'm sorry.
What?
No. Because one more is going to turn into one more. And you know that.
No, it's not.
That's exactly what you would say if I didn't make it.
But also people notice something else. After that interaction, her demeanor changes even more. Then comes the Twitter conversation, because someone in chat tells her to wink if she didn't consent to the post. She refuses to answer. He answers for her, and that part bothered a lot of people because regardless of what the truth was, people wanted to hear her answer, not his. If you're listening though and you're not watching, watch this part. It's very important. Just keep your eyes on this part right here, okay? Eventually, Vamp Daddy Evil goes to sleep, and Callie is alone on live stream, and she's crying, and she's drunk, and she's talking about wanting to get high. She's talking about wanting to leave, and honestly, it was like... it was a moment where I just wasn't frustrated with her anymore because I wasn't looking at this internet personality or fundraiser controversy. Like, I don't care about the lies or the manipulation or the addiction or like her being a public figure doesn't matter to me. I'm still seeing a 19-year-old girl who is 10 hours from home. Home has burned down. Home was never good to begin with. And now she's in this filthy apartment with a man she barely knows, wondering wondering how she got there. And for the first time in a long time, I think a lot of the audience just, like, if they were angry, they stopped being angry and became scared. Because whatever this was, it wasn't getting better. So, Callie eventually goes back to Tennessee, and this is the part of the story where everyone finds themselves in the worst possible position as an audience. Because we find ourselves agreeing with some of what a person says while still feeling deeply uncomfortable with who is saying it. Because then, since she's left, Vamp Daddy needs to tell his side, and he has 8 parts, hours of explanation, hours of context, hours of trying to explain how he ended up homeless, unemployed, investigated by police, and sleeping in his car after trying to help Callie, and she just dipped. And honestly, the frustrating part is that some of what he says isn't unreasonable. That doesn't automatically make him trustworthy. Those are different conversations. Because throughout this entire rabbit hole, Vamp Daddy positions himself as the adult in the room, the rescuer, the guy who stepped in when nobody else would, the guy who drove 11 hours to save her, the guy who opened his home and gave her a chance and paid for her hotels. This is a guy who lost everything trying to help somebody everyone else had abandoned. And that is very clearly the version of the story he wants us to walk away with.
I am very tired, so we end up getting a hotel. Ultimately, I have to call off work twice now due to the hotel situation. I'm tired again because, like I said, I just hadn't been sleeping well. I hadn't slept much with her because I had to help her pack. I had to help her do a lot of things, and driving a very long time can take a lot out of you. So we're in another state at this point. We enjoy each other a little bit. I obviously kick my feet up and relax in the hotel. She does too. She orders some things, whatever. We stop and talk about what we want to do, what sort of life she wants to have. She decides that yes, she wants to do content and make money from that. And hey, I can bring a lot of attention to somebody. And a lot of people want to see me make content as well. You people can say whatever you want. At the end of the day, I'm still an attractive man. I still have a lot of people interested in me. For the next couple of days with Callie, I record some photos and videos of her. Every single thing I have ever posted, and she knows I recorded her. Every single photo and every single video I have ever posted of her, I have shown her and asked, hey, do you like the way you look in this? And are you okay if I post? I'll tell you word for word that a lot of people told me that she disappears randomly and will just run away and just run off. And I told her I want her to be there when I wake up. And instead, what I wake up to is her gone and text messages saying that she Ubered off to a tattoo parlor, couldn't pay for the tattoos, and need me to come pay for them. Yeah, obviously it's pretty annoying. But I do it because, one, what am I supposed to do? And two, obviously I still care about her. But that's not really something good to be doing. And everyone knows that. And I'd like to think that deep down she knows that too. Callie had been on the phone with her brother, who, I'll be completely honest, I'm not a big fan of her brother. I have a different view of him now. They wanted her to go back for the Christmas holiday. Keep in mind that this is a girl who, when she was assaulted in a disgusting way that I won't even describe, when she was only 12 years old, by somebody in that family, let's go ahead and say, Miranda, her mother's, her lover at the time, did some disgusting things to a 12-year-old girl, and I'll just leave it up to imagination what he did. And I'm going to let you know right now, kids don't lie about that type of thing, and if anyone wants to try to accuse her of lying when she was only 12 and is 100% a dead ringer for that type of abuse, you're a disgusting human being, and please never speak to me. And that's coming from me, by the way. If I think you're disgusting, you've probably really fallen off. To be completely honest with you, I have a pretty strong dislike of everyone in her family at this point, because they see this young girl going through a domestic abuse situation, and do they help out? Do they try to keep, the boyfriend of the young girl away from her? While she wasn't even really the correct age to be with somebody like that, if you know, you know. For some reason, Miranda, her mother, approved it, which not really surprising. It's not the first time that Miranda would let a young Callie get hurt under her watch. But every single one of them sees her in this situation, and Callie's been online for a while, let's be honest. We've all seen the condition she was in when she was growing up. But do any of them actually step in when she's actively being assaulted? And I just want to say flat out, yes, 100% President abuses Callie. It's been documented. We have seen videos of it. We have had things leaked of it. We have had witnesses come forward. He has been arrested numerous times. It 100% happens. And Miranda, instead of saying, should I get my daughter away from that? Nah. Her brother thinking, should I step in and protect somebody in my family? Nah. What these people do, what they did is they literally sat around on Reddit and Discord just talking bad about her while she was in this predicament. I go to sleep, I wake back up, Callie's gone again, and my ex-girlfriend is conversating with me. She's texting me, asking me to call her. She calls me and tells me that Callie has actually gone to the police about me. I have no idea what, but I only assume the worst because she has a history of going to the police with abuse, and God forbid, even though, I would never do that to anyone, whatever happens is going to happen, and, as a guy, especially as a big guy, the cops come for abuse or taking someone, and it's sure as hell not going to be the one. I had to pick up some antifreeze for my car, pick up a blue book for her anyways, just a little surprise to say that, hey, I'm not mad at you. I text her saying, hey, I'm not upset, just let me know what's going on, and, I'll come pick you up wherever you are. Get back, and when I pull out my driveway, like 8 cops immediately corner me, and yeah, they were not taking any chances. I am handcuffed, placed in the back of a car, they have a search warrant for my place, they go through, they take my phone or whatever. Ultimately, I'm not arrested at the time. Cops tell me that they'd like to speak to me at the station, they offer me a ride there and back. And I know never talk to cops, everyone will say never talk to cops or whatever, I don't care, I talk to the cops. So what? If anything happened, it's best to just get it out of the way. Say what happened, say what you did, and just deal with it. So I do that, I talk to the police. At the time, all I knew was, of course, what we did together. I don't know what she told the cops. I get a story told to me from some people that say that Callie was not okay with me posting any of the content, which wouldn't surprise me. It turns out, however, that she has said more than that, and I find out at a later time. So anyways, I give the police my phone, and give the police all the information, give them my phone, and give the police, everything they need to know, everything they need to do. She had apparently told them I have content on my phone, and that she had seen this content involving something that, let's just say, has the same initials as Cyberpunk, C, and then the other one, yeah. Which I want to say flat out, absolutely disgusting. I never have been interested in that, and never will be interested in that, and never was interested in that. But please don't find anything like that on my device, because there's nothing like that on there, and I have no idea why she would ever say something so heinous. But ultimately, she leaves me no choice now. For my own safety and well-being, having someone do and say something like that when they're trying to honestly just get free things out of the police officers for free resources for a motel room, I lost my job, I lost my place, I'm living out of my car now, how awesome, right? But whatever, it could be worse. I have to look on the bright side. I can say that I'm still able to find employment, I'm still able to have money, I'm still able to get back on my feet, and there are people who have it worse than me who can't do that. So even though I'm in a dark place right now and not a good situation, I just have to try to keep moving forward.
The problem is that even if every single word of that version were true, it still doesn't erase the part that makes my skin crawl, vamp. Because, once again, we have an older man looking at a deeply traumatized, addicted, mentally unwell 19-year-old girl who had just escaped years of chaos and deciding, yeah, this relationship opportunity, great. Not roommate, not friend, I'm not gonna be a safe adult. Let's do a relationship again. And that is where I have to check out, because healthy adults don't look at somebody actively drowning and try to date them. They throw life preservers. They don't jump into a car asking for exclusivity. That is my opinion. You can disagree with me, but that's where I land. Unexpected expenses, hotel costs, missed work, long hours driving. He helped her pack. He helped her move. He helped her start over. And listening to him tell it, he wants the audience to understand the sacrifice. Look at what I gave up. Look at what I spent. Look at what I risked. Look at what I did for her. And honestly, I believe he probably believes it. I genuinely do. I think Vamp Daddy Evil sees himself as the hero of the story, and the issue is that predators often do. The issue is that exploitative people rarely wake up in the morning and think, today I will exploit someone vulnerable. And most of them truly believe that they are helping. That doesn't make the power imbalance disappear, though. According to him, after the drive, they stayed in hotels and they talked about life. They talked about content creation. They talked about the future and making money online. And he openly states that one of the things he could offer her was exposure and attention because he already had an audience. He specifically says, I can bring a lot of attention to somebody. And that sentence, it just stuck with me for some reason, because at that point, Callie wasn't a girlfriend, wasn't even fully a person in the way he talks about her. Callie was content, an audience opportunity, a collaboration, a mutually beneficial arrangement, a business opportunity, and maybe that's unfair. Maybe that's me projecting onto the words, but that's how it felt listening to him say it. And then we get to the Twitter posts, the pictures, the videos, the content that made half the internet recoil. And according to Vamp Daddy Evil, every single photo and video was consensual. According to him, every single upload was approved beforehand. According to him, he showed her everything before posting it. Asked permission, received permission, posted with permission. That is his version. His position has remained consistent on that point. Other people involved in the situation have disputed that publicly. Those competing accounts are part of what eventually led to police involvement. So at this point, viewers are left deciding who they believe. And people immediately started asking if she was comfortable creating this content. Why is it suddenly appearing for free? Why now? Why here? For the free? With him? Those questions spread quickly online. Then comes one of the stranger stories in the version of events, because according to him, before she arrived, multiple people warned him. She runs. She disappears. She leaves unexpectedly. He claims he told her directly that he wanted her there when he woke up. Instead, according to him, he woke up and she was gone. Apparently, she had taken an Uber to get tattoos and couldn't pay. So apparently, Vamp Daddy Evil had to come and cover the bill. Listening to him tell the story, you can almost hear the disbelief. He sounds genuinely shocked that chaos followed her to Iowa. And honestly, that may be the most naive part of this entire thing, because what did you think, Vamp? Vamp Daddy? Like this was going to be some magical reset button? Like you're going to pick up a traumatized 19-year-old with addiction, struggled, untreated mental health issues, unstable housing history, abusive relationship history, and internet notoriety, and suddenly get a stable domestic life? Oh, Vamp Daddy. Trauma travels, addiction travels, chaos travels. State lines, don't stop any of that. Then comes the family section, and this is where things get complicated, because honestly, some of what he says here isn't wrong. According to him, Callie's family failed her. Facts. He references the allegations about the stepfather, concerns about the family members not intervening sooner regarding P-Stain Preston. He references public family conflict that social media knew about. He questions a lot. He asks questions a lot of viewers had already been asking themselves. Why wasn't someone stopping this? Yeah, I know my name's Vamp Daddy Evil, but I'm the least evil out of everybody. Why did this teenager have to be navigating domestic violence and homelessness before I came along? Okay, Vamp, those are fair questions. But then the hypocrisy walks into the room, because while criticizing Preston's age and Preston's behavior, he somehow never fully addresses why he thought he was different. And that's the piece I can't get past with these people, because if your argument is, this vulnerable teenager deserved protection instead of exploitation, then congrats, I agree. Don't we all? Completely, wholeheartedly. So why exactly did protection somehow become cohabitation? Why did support become intimacy? Why did rescue become romance? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels an awful like he saw exactly the same vulnerabilities Preston saw. He even admits that he saw them. He just packaged his response differently. That's my opinion. Y'all are allowed to form your own. So according to him, investigators found nothing supporting those accusations. As with many things in this story, there are competing narratives and incomplete public information. The investigation itself matters more than internet speculation ever will, but then comes the fallout. He loses his job, loses his apartment, ends up living in his car, and that's where the story becomes strange again. Because somehow the man who drove 11 hours to rescue the internet's favorite rescue project suddenly becomes the next person posting a GoFundMe. And maybe that's the perfect ending for this part of the storyline, because by this point, everyone somehow ends up in the same place eventually. Homeless, asking strangers for help, telling their side of the story online, and trying to convince the audience that they were the good guy. And the truth is probably messier than that. It usually is. But personally, I don't think this section of the rabbit hole is about whether Vamp Daddy Evil was better than P-Stain Preston. I don't think that's the question. I think the question is, why did another older man immediately appear the moment the previous older man disappeared? Because that pattern is what keeps me up at night. Not because it's rare, because it isn't. Because vulnerable people attract helpers. Unfortunately, they also attract predators. And sometimes those are much harder to tell apart than people want to admit. So when I started this investigation, I thought I was making a video about a girl who cleaned a dirty house. I thought it was going to be a flower girl situation. And I thought I was making a video about internet fame. I thought I was making a video about GoFundMes. And then, like, at some point, I thought I was making a video about grooming. Then addiction entered the room. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're making a video about that. Oh, and then exploitation entered the room. So we got to add that. Then, you know, the pressure of social media entered the room. And the trauma entered the room. And eventually I realized this story was never about one thing. It was about what happens when every bad thing arrives at the same address at the same time. Because if you remove the platform, remove the internet from the story, what do you have? A neglected child, an older boyfriend, substance abuse, financial dependence, domestic allegation, mental illness, housing instability, poverty. That story, hello, exists in every city in America, probably every city in the world. The only difference is that this one happened on our phones, in front of our faces. We watched her become internet famous. We watched strangers furnish her house. We watched strangers buy her groceries. We watched strangers buy her cleaning supplies, buy her cars, try to save her over and over and over again. And eventually, we watched strangers become so angry that they couldn't support it anymore. And that's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath this entire story. You cannot rescue someone into healing. You can't crowdfund recovery. You can't Amazon Prime somebody a support system. You can't Venmo somebody's self-worth. And you can't bully somebody into sobriety. Those things have to happen somewhere quieter than the internet usually allows. So where does accountability fit into all of this, though? Somewhere, for sure, absolutely somewhere. People were hurt. People were lied to. People lost money. People felt manipulated, and those things matter. They should matter. But accountability and compassion are not opposites. They can exist in the same room. In fact, they should. Because the older I get, the less interested I become in deciding whether somebody's a victim or a perpetrator. Real life is rarely that simple. Sometimes people who have been harmed go on to harm others. Sometimes addicts manipulate people who genuinely care about them. Sometimes traumatized people become dangerous to themselves and exhausting to everyone around them. And none of those things erase what happened to them in the first place. Two things can be true. The internet hates, though, when two things are true. But this story insists on it. As for Peace Stain Preston, I gotta keep it real. My opinion's not so. A grown man pursuing a vulnerable teenager, living those circumstances is unacceptable. Full stop. Period. As for the parents, children do not create those environments, adults do. Disgusting. Period. As for Vamp Daddy Evil, driving across multiple states to involve yourself romantically with a deeply traumatized teenager fresh out of an abusive relationship is not heroic to me, and it'll never be. As for the internet, I think we meant well. Honestly. I think thousands of people genuinely wanted to help. I think thousands of people genuinely cared. I also think some people forgot that there was a real human being underneath the screenshots and the timelines and the subreddit posts. And finally, as for Callie, I don't know how her story ends. Maybe she gets sober. Maybe she disappears from the internet completely. Maybe one day she rebuilds trust. Maybe she never does. Maybe she's able to tell her own story one day, or maybe she never wants to revisit any of this again. And that part belongs to her, not us. But, Callie, if she ever watches this, I think the thing I would like to say to her is, people are not born this way. Nobody comes into the world wanting chaos and wanting to be addicted and have instability and wanting to be abused. Those things are learned. And if they can be learned, I promise you, Callie, they can also be unlearned. It takes years, though. Sometimes decades. Sometimes it takes losing everything. But it happens. I've seen it happen. I've lived it happening. And maybe that's the only thing I am willing to root for. I don't want you to be punished. I don't want you to be humiliated. I don't want another scandal. I want to see you recover. Because if this story proves anything, it's that surviving your childhood and healing from your childhood are two completely different jobs. And for some people, the second one takes a lifetime. This is Investigation Chocolate signing off. Please take care of yourselves, and remember that somewhere outside the For You page, there are thousands of people living versions of the story that nobody is documenting, and those people deserve compassion too. Thank you. Goodbye.
Every mom chocolate. Oh, wait. You're still here? You watched to the end? First of all, what is wrong with us? Because this video was approximately like 14 business days long. But seriously, thank you. This venture is new. This channel is new. Investigation Chocolate is brand new. And the support on these videos has meant the world to me. Y'all have no idea. If you'd like to support me and support my small business, link in the description, or if you just want to keep me caffeinated while I fall down internet rabbit holes all night, you can buy me a coffee below. Also, like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like more investigations. Thank you for being here. Now, please go touch some grass, hydrate, stretch your back, and maybe let's not think about mold and Pea Stain Preston and Vamp Daddy Evil for at least 24 hours. I owe it to myself, and y'all owe it to yourselves. Goodbye.
Did you know the ceiling fan is nearly as old as the electric light bulb? Actually, did you know it's older than electricity itself? We humans really don't like the feeling of being hot, and we figured out more than 1,000 years ago that forcing the air around us to move, a la the wind, can help us cool down. Hand fans like this worked great for millennia, but they really did a number on the wrists. And while the solution to that for a distressingly long period of time was to outsource that problem to other humans, once industrialization started giving us access to powered machinery, we had a much better solution. It didn't take that much imagination to use that machinery to spin some angled paddles hanging from the ceiling to create artificial wind. Early fans were driven by simple gearing or belts, powered by water wheels or even steam engines, and the nicer factory owners out there would spend the money to install ceiling fans to help their workers beat the heat in the summertime. And since we figured out how to build electric motors, which spin things very early into this whole electricity business, electric ceiling fans were an obvious invention. Just attach some of those fan blades to a motor, hang the thing from the ceiling, and you've got a ceiling fan powered by electromagnetism. Philip Deal is credited for inventing the electric ceiling fan in 1882, the same year Schuyler Wheeler is credited for inventing the regular fan. Electric fans were pretty obvious and arguably the first mass-market application for the electric motor. In fact, many pioneering motor manufacturers went into business to sell cooling fans. Much of the United States gets pretty hot in the summer, so electric fans became a very intriguing item. If you were convinced to subscribe for electric light, you'd have to do a lot of work running wires around the place to light up each room, and maybe you could use them to keep cool too. The idea of an artificial wind machine that you could just switch on must have been incredibly compelling. I imagine to many folks at the time, it felt like controlling the weather. But we had barely figured any of this stuff out yet. We still hadn't settled on AC or DC power when Deal patented his fan, and even once we did, electric motors were incredibly expensive to make. But over time, we'd learn how to mass produce them. And since all it takes to make a fan from a motor is the fan part, before long, they started to become a fixture of our lives. Around the turn of the 20th century, ceiling fans were a common sight, especially in public spaces. But by the middle of the century, they rapidly began to disappear. The advent of air conditioning turned a once revolutionary cooling technology into old news, and for many years, those of us in the US pretty much forgot about ceiling fans. Which might be surprising, because today, ceiling fans are once again a very common sight. Though I hear tell much of Europe hasn't discovered them yet. Maybe by the end I'll convince you to give them a try. But the reason ceiling fans managed to stage a comeback over here is not quite as straightforward as you would think. If you're wondering how on earth a video about such a simple thing could possibly be this long, well, hello, welcome to the channel. You must be new here. But I've been spending so much time on this script because the humble ceiling fan can explain so much about us. Its resurgence in the United States is a fascinatingly human story where nostalgia for the past amplified a cultural moment of reckoning. But that nostalgia, while useful for reminding us of a good idea we had abandoned, also opened the door for a market which quickly turned to crap. Ceiling fans began to be sold not so much for their functional purpose, but instead for their fashionable looks. And when fashion comes first, weird things happen, which we're still dealing with to this day. To understand what I mean, we have to start with what ceiling fans used to look like. This vintage ceiling fan, made by the Hunter Fan Company, might look like the most generic and traditional ceiling fan design you could possibly imagine. But that's because when this design was first made, fans were the only cooling technology we had. And the whole point of hanging one from the ceiling like this was to produce a lot of air movement, so the cooling effect could be felt throughout a large area. That required big, aggressively pitched paddles which pushed on lots of air, and spinning them required a powerful motor. However, when at operating speed, the paddles don't actually move very fast at all. At full speed, this fan only rotates at 200 RPM, and with the technology of the time, a strong motor designed to run that slowly needed to be quite large, which is why the motor itself is what you're looking at. That's not a decorative cover with a motor inside, it's a 40-pound lump of cast iron and copper windings. This is function over form, and even the details are functional. That pattern of holes may look pretty, but it's there for ventilation to keep the windings cool. And because those great big motors needed lots of raw materials and skilled labor to produce, they were pretty expensive. Even into the 1920s, when we had figured out how to make motors pretty well, a ceiling fan like this cost the 2026 equivalent of about $1,000, and pricing would remain similarly high for decades to come. The high cost of a ceiling fan meant it was mainly businesses and institutions that would spend the cash and go through the effort to install them. They had plenty of incentive to keep their employees happy and their guests cool, so they could justify the cost, especially since one fan could handle a whole room. Also, thanks to the advent of light kits, which attached light fixtures to the bottom of the ceiling fan, installing one could add room lighting at the same time, making them a compelling purchase in the early days of electrification, even in parts of the country where it's only hot part of the year. Over time, as electrification spread and awareness of ceiling fans did too, they'd slowly gained some popularity in the home, but mainly among the wealthier set, and mainly in parts of the country which were chronically hot. Once we had standardized on plugs and sockets, and voltage, it was a lot easier to just plug in a portable fan like this. These fans, with their much smaller blades designed to rotate very quickly, could use much more compact motors, and that made them a lot more affordable. Plus, they don't need permanent installation, and they can be moved around the house as you do, so these were a much better value in the eyes of most ordinary people. Still, ceiling fans were a very common sight around town, wherever people congregated, like their favorite restaurants, or maybe the barbershop, or the old soda fountains, and the bank, and whatnot. They were a staple of the community, which everyone would see as they went about their day, and in the summer, which everyone enjoyed. That is, of course, until my hero, Willis Carrier, invented air conditioning. Fans can't actually lower the temperature in a room, but air conditioning can. And air conditioning could also lower ambient humidity too, providing a whole new kind of comfort. Air conditioning was this marvelous new invention, getting installed in movie theaters to boost ticket sales, and before long, everywhere else a blast of Arctic air could draw in some customers. As you may imagine, this caused demand for new ceiling fans to rapidly dry up. The public spaces they were most likely to be seen were also the first to install air conditioning. And before too long, air conditioning systems became affordable enough for average folks to buy one. Now, air conditioning was extremely energy intensive compared to ceiling fans, but during the post-war boom, where we were building power plants left and right and we barely had to work to get coal and oil out of the ground, we weren't thinking very much about that. We were thinking about the tremendous work needed to upgrade the power grid such that all those new suburban homes could have an energy-hungry air conditioner of their own, and later central air conditioners which cooled the whole house. But you know what? We did that work because we're humans who know how to do very hard things like run wires and upgrade power grids when we want to. If only we could remember that. Anyway, the point is, air conditioning was expensive and very difficult to deploy, but energy was cheap, and it was a sign of progress which was extremely desirable to a wealthy, growing nation. Meanwhile, ceiling fans were literally old technology. So as air conditioning became widespread, ceiling fans started to disappear from our lives. By the 1960s, there were few companies bothering to make them in the US. Robbins & Myers, the iron foundry turned motor manufacturer who made this desk fan and had acquired Hunter in 1949, kept the Hunter ceiling fan line in production as there was still reasonable demand for ceiling fans in outdoor spaces. But for indoor spaces, ceiling fans became quite esoteric and the mark of a cheapskate. There were, however, plenty of situations where air conditioning was impractical, like large factories and warehouses. So there was still decent industrial demand for ceiling fans, but those buyers wanted cheap, reliable fans which did the job without a fuss. And that's how this came to be. This is an Emerson heat fan. And yes, it's called a heat fan, despite the fact that it's just a ceiling fan. That's important for what comes later. But those in the ceiling fan collector community often call this the blender fan, thanks to the motor's resemblance to the base of a kitchen blender. And yes, there's a ceiling fan collector community, because of course there is. Humans are awesome. Get yourself a proper fixation. It's fun. I know way too much about ceiling fans now. Anyway, much like Robbins & Myers, Emerson was a pioneering electric motor manufacturer who got started selling cooling fans. Because again, it's the simplest thing to do with a motor. Stick some fan blades on it and job done. But over the years, Emerson grew into a major industrial supplier of electric motors, which got used by all sorts of industries for all sorts of things. For decades, they had been making ceiling fans very similar to this Hunter model. But as ceiling fans went from desirable thing to keep your patrons comfortable to the solution for when air conditioning is too expensive, Emerson got a little crafty with their production lines. They decided to take one of the washing machine motors they pumped out like some kind of motor factory and stuck some fan blades onto it so they could sell it as a ceiling fan. And that's why this looks the way that it does. This is just a washing machine motor. That's a little oversimplified because the technical details of this motor are quite different from what would go in an actual washing machine. Plus they had to design a flywheel to attach the blades to and add a switch housing so you could actually turn it on and off and select between its speed settings. But this right here is the same K63 motor housing which Emerson was using for all sorts of applications. They likely started using it so they could shut down the production line of pancake motors, which were only useful for the rapidly declining ceiling fan market. So, as we approach the 1970s, you had essentially two options: an extremely traditional ceiling fan from Hunter, or this thing. However, the situation was very different in other parts of the world, particularly the warm climates of Asia. Buildings were rapidly getting electrified, but energy resources weren't abundant enough for air conditioning to become widespread for quite some time. So while we had basically stopped caring, and arguably even trying, ceiling fan manufacturing was experiencing a huge boom overseas. For example, the Shell Manufacturing Company in Hong Kong built upon an idea which appears to have originated in Italy. Turning the motor inside out allowed for a sleeker looking fan, which was also a lot cheaper to build from a materials perspective. Here's an example of such a ceiling fan motor. Unlike the traditional American design where the stator windings surround the spinning rotor, in this design, the stator windings are inside the rotor, and the outside surface of the whole thing is what spins, giving them their common name, spinner motors. This greatly simplified the design of a ceiling fan and lowered materials cost substantially, since you didn't really need a motor housing. Just attach the fan blades directly to the motor. Early designs had some glitches to work out, like bearings which failed prematurely, but eventually those issues were solved, and this became a much more refined and cost-effective design than anything we were making here in the States. On occasion, fans like this ended up getting imported to the US and sold as a cheap alternative to the fans from Emerson and Hunter. But it was a pretty rare occasion, since nobody really wanted a ceiling fan. But that was about to change. Remember how this is called the heat fan? Emerson started making these things in the 1960s. But in 1973, we would go through a bit of an oil crisis, which we clearly learned lots of very good lessons from. In response to the oil embargo causing energy to get much more expensive, including heating oil, which was still quite commonly used back then, Emerson started to market their ceiling fans as heat recovery fans, which could save on heating costs. See, in a space with high ceilings, like a factory, warehouse, or even a church sanctuary, a temperature gradient forms in the winter due to warm air on denser, cooler air. And this means a lot of the heat energy coming from a building's heating system simply ends up stuck at the ceiling where nobody can feel it, a pretty significant waste. If you could use some sort of mechanical device to push that warm air back down to the floor, then you could recover that wasted heat energy. Thus, heat recovery, also known as heat reclamation. Getting the warm air back down to the floor where the people are would not only make the heat more useful, but since the thermostat is down there too, the heating system won't need to run as often, and it will burn less of its suddenly much more expensive fuel. Emerson just so happened to make ceiling fans which would be perfect for heat reclamation, so they began to market them specifically for that purpose. And that's why their very utilitarian ceiling fan, which is the same ceiling fan it was before, became the heat fan. Industry and large institutions were slowly discovering that ceiling fans could be useful for saving energy, and the good word was starting to spread. And you know what else got really expensive very suddenly? Air conditioning. We still burned quite a lot of oil for generating electricity back in 1973, which meant the oil embargo made pretty much everything we did using energy much more expensive. And out of necessity, people began to realize that they could save some money on their electricity bills by turning up the temperature on their thermostats and using electric fans to keep cool. Basic portable fans were still widely available, now with less finger chopping. But while fans were all the rage, ceiling fans were still expensive and ugly industrial items, which relatively few people would consider appropriate for a living room. However, in 1973, we were also going through a very intense wave of nostalgia for the turn of the 20th century. Films like The Sting repopularized the ragtime music of Scott Joplin, and earlier films like Hello, Dolly brought the gay 90s back into our collective attention, as did the restaurant chain TGI Fridays. Walt Disney World had just opened in Florida with a duplication of Disneyland's Main Street USA, bringing an idealized recreation of turn-of-the-century America to a national audience. It was a whole thing, which lasted a surprising while. Cheers, the TV show, wouldn't hit the airwaves until 1982, and yet the Tiffany lamp, stained glass, and ornate woodwork aesthetic was still going strong. While we were enamored with that old-timey aesthetic, well, we started getting obsessed with antiques and curios of the time. And you know what was a quaint old-timey curio you could find in antique shops which hailed from the turn of the century? Ceiling fans. Yep. Ceiling fans started to become a fashionable item thanks to our sudden obsession with the past. But it's even weirder than it sounds on the surface. I'm skipping details for time, but in 1974, an antiques dealer named Burton Burton founded the Casablanca Fan Company to sell reproductions of antique ceiling fans. But when I say reproductions, I don't mean ceiling fans that look like antiques. I mean objects which appear to be antique ceiling fans, because his earliest designs were, I kid you not, purely decorative. Initially, they started making reproductions of the old belt-driven ceiling fan systems you'd find in a factory, and those made their way into lots of themed restaurants, including at least one Portillo's I have myself been to. They were rigged to rotate, but nowhere near fast enough to actually function as effective ceiling fans. Yet, diners were so captivated by the visual of old-timey spinning things that it became a shockingly huge fad. And the visual really was the point. For those who may not know the connection, the name Casablanca Fan Company was chosen because of how prominently ceiling fans are featured in the film Casablanca. You know, Humphrey Bogart, here's looking at you, kid. In the film, the ceiling fans shown on screen were props meant to convey to the audience that it's hot in Casablanca. And because they were movie props, they were rigged up to spin much more slowly than an actual ceiling fan would. A real ceiling fan in operation doesn't look very interesting or even recognizable on film because its blades will just blur together. And the look from the film is what Burton Burton was trying to replicate. He wasn't trying to sell actual ceiling fans. He was trying to sell a kind of dynamic decoration, which just so happened to be copies of antique ceiling fan designs. Quick side note, Emerson, who we already know was great at selling the same thing they had always been making for different reasons, also started selling their ceiling fans using the name Casablanca. I'm guessing the film must have been on TV a lot at the time. In fact, Emerson trademarked the name Casablanca before Burton Burton started his company, which turned into a whole mess which we don't need to get into. Emerson was just trying to sell more of their fans, but the Casablanca Fan Company was trying to serve the weirdly huge demand for purely decorative, turn-of-the-century ceiling fans, which were suddenly all the rage in your favorite themed restaurant chains. This sounds nuts, but I mean, it sure was flair. And as the general public became exposed to ceiling fans in formal settings again, their reputation as quaint, oddball things to have in the home started to fade. After all, quaint was in, and the timing could not have been more perfect. People were being re-exposed to ceiling fans right at the start of an energy crisis, which renewed interest in their functional purpose too. For a brief while, the options for actually functional ceiling fans remained quite limited and mostly industrial. But all it really takes to make a ceiling fan look old-timey and fashionable is decoration. So many companies, including Casablanca, started purchasing real ceiling fan motors from suppliers like Emerson and concealing them in decorative shrouds which replicated the appearance of old-timey fans. Give the blades some details like perhaps a stencil or a woven inlay, and now you have a decorative fan which is both in fashion and, get this, actually works. Ceiling fans were now being sold as a premium item, which was both an energy-saving appliance and furniture. And this was only the beginning. You see, there would be a sequel to the 1973 oil crisis in 1979. And so, ceiling fans, already experiencing renewed interest as a premium item for the nostalgic middle class, started flying off the shelves. We finally realized we had made a mistake in getting rid of all those ceiling fans. They made us comfortable before air conditioning, after all, and our collective decision to view air conditioning as a replacement for them turned out to be a false choice. As energy policy started to become a thing and we began looking at ways to increase energy efficiency, new homes started getting constructed with electrical boxes on the ceiling meant specifically for ceiling fans. Home builders were happy to go along with it too, since a fan with a light kit could fulfill code requirements for lighting in bedrooms and living rooms. This massively increased the market for new ceiling fans, and with a new market came a flurry of innovation. For the first time in decades, new motor designs meant specifically for ceiling fans were being developed to make them even more energy efficient than they already were. Some were flops, but others were significant improvements both to performance and noise. New controls for those motors appeared, offering more speed settings than the 2 or 3 you typically find. And if you wanted to get fancy, you could put in an in-wall speed control, so you didn't even have to pull on a chain to switch it on. And of course, with renewed interest, many more designs started to appear. And now ceiling fans weren't just the industrial machines you'd find in a factory, but could actually be a centerpiece of your living room to express your taste and brag to your friends about. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a break from the history here to explain what makes ceiling fans so different from a portable fan, and thus why they suddenly became desirable in the home. For one thing, mounting a fan on the ceiling means it's out of the way yet always there, which is convenient. But putting a fan on the ceiling produces a very different cooling effect than a directional fan. Ceiling fans are still directional, of course, and you'll feel their breeze most when you're directly underneath them. But their large diameter means they produce a large column of air moving downward, which will bounce off the floor and spread out sideways, producing noticeable air movement throughout a room. As a matter of fact, this is the principle behind those high-volume, low-speed ceiling fans which have been popping up lately. Put a giant ceiling fan at the top of a warehouse or shopping center, and it will send strong lateral currents of air through the aisles and over a really large area. Ceiling fans are essentially trying to replicate a natural breeze. If you can imagine the sort of relief you feel on a warm day when the wind picks up enough to make the tree leaves rustle, well, that's pretty much the point of a ceiling fan. And you feel relief for 2 reasons. First, in still air, your warm body heats up the air next to your skin. And if you yourself aren't moving, you end up surrounded by a bubble of air, which is warmer than the rest of the room. A ceiling fan, even if it's running at a low speed, is able to constantly push that air away from you, which has the effect of making the room seem cooler than it is. This is perfect for amplifying the effectiveness of an air conditioner. And since most ceiling fans only draw 20 or 30 watts of power when running at their medium speed setting, that amplifying effect comes with virtually no cost. But it doesn't just amplify what your air conditioner does, it also amplifies what your body naturally does. We cool ourselves through perspiration, and as sweat evaporates from our skin, heat energy is pulled out of our bodies thanks to the same mechanism which makes air conditioning possible, the latent heat of vaporization. A ceiling fan churning up the air in a room will help your sweat to evaporate faster, which not only cools your body faster, but can also keep your sweat from building up on your skin and making you feel all gross. Best of all, a ceiling fan can do this without making much noise. Running at high speed, most ceiling fans sound very similar to natural wind, and running at lower speeds, many are effectively silent. That's the logic which caused them to get popular again. Everyone already knew they could save energy using fans, but every other style of fan is not only loud, but also only really works for one person at a time. And while oscillating mechanisms existed to make portable fans like this sweep across the room, well, that's its own kind of annoying. Ceiling fans allow for a constant mild breeze with none of the fuss. And if that breeze makes you feel comfortable enough to raise your thermostat set point by a few degrees, a ceiling fan will save energy and money without sacrificing comfort. So, for the millions of Americans who already have ceiling fans but might have gotten out of the habit of using them, switch those suckers on and see how they make you feel. It's a subtle effect, so it may take a while to notice, but their subtlety is the point. And ceiling fans have other benefits beyond cooling. Most ceiling fans offer a reversing function, because by drawing air from below and throwing it up against the ceiling, they can churn up the air in a room without creating much of a draft. In fact, many fans set to their lowest speed aren't even noticeable when running in reverse. But they'll still be moving enough air to keep the room at a uniform temperature, which can be very useful in the winter. Thermal gradients aren't as much of an issue in a home with typical ceiling heights, but keeping the air mixed up just enough can reduce the effect of drafty windows and doors, and can even help an HVAC system operate more efficiently, particularly when your system has distribution issues like poorly placed vents and returns. But let's get back to the story from the past, because their sudden popularity would soon lead to some inevitable consequences. Domestic manufacturing, which had all but abandoned ceiling fans, couldn't possibly keep up with this very sudden demand. Not only were new homes getting constructed with several fans each, but folks looking to add fans to their existing home wanted options too. In yet another example of fortuitous timing, the rather new concept of the big box home improvement store was starting to sweep the nation, and ceiling fans were some of their best-selling items. Accordingly, the purchasing departments of stores like Builders Square, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Menards started contracting with overseas suppliers to meet this seemingly insatiable demand. Remember how Hong Kong was making tons of ceiling fans for Asian markets? Well, suddenly they were making them for us too. But even that wouldn't be enough. The ceiling fan market in the US continued to grow through the reforming and opening up of mainland China. So tons of ceiling fan factories started popping up there just for our market. They were apparently puzzled by our desire to have antiquated-looking ceiling fans and not modern ones, but they were still fundamentally motors on sticks, and thus they were pretty cheap to make and to customize. Just as Casablanca was putting motors from Emerson inside decorative shells, Chinese factories would do the same with their own motors. There's even some evidence that the unauthorized copying of intellectual property common in Chinese manufacturing started thanks to, of all things, the sudden and explosive growth in ceiling fans. Saying that it started thanks to ceiling fans is obviously speculation, but this was all happening right as manufacturing in mainland China was getting serious, and factories were constantly copying design details from one another as deals brokered for American firms were made and broken. We're not necessarily the good guys in those stories. My friend Dan, who served as script consultant and fact checker and who supplied many of the fans I've shown you, has a video explaining this if you'd like to know the specifics of certain situations. But the early to mid-80s were a wild time. Nostalgia, the growth of big box stores, the shift to overseas manufacturing, and hard-learned lessons from an energy crisis all lined up to make ceiling fans a shockingly lucrative business for a hot minute, which everyone wanted to be a part of, because if you could manage to import ceiling fans, you would sell them. But if you didn't already see this coming, here's where we get to the bad news. Or, more fairly, the complicated news. As ceiling fans became popular and manufacturing got cheaper, the market changed in many ways which made ceiling fans abundant, but ultimately much worse at their job. Initially, imported fans were pretty good. Yes, the motors were made cheaply, but they were still powerful. Remember, Hong Kong was making ceiling fans because it's hot over there too, and the compact size of the spinner motor made them perfect for hiding in all sorts of different designs. It was really a match made in heaven. But the ceiling fan would become a victim of its inherent simplicity, and before long, things would go off the rails. Now that ceiling fans had become a commodity, most were being sold for one of two reasons: style or price. And both of those things began to distort the function of a ceiling fan. Big box stores had already started a race to the bottom by competing on price, and were encouraging their suppliers to cut costs wherever possible. The motor is the most expensive component in a ceiling fan, and to make it cheaper, it's got to get smaller and weaker. So they did, and ceiling fans became rather weak sauce. And this didn't get any better, because the other thing which sells fans, style, didn't matter to the motor. Manufacturers quickly realized they could just put the same cheap motor into many, many different styles of fan and create a huge product line, all based around the same pretty crappy components. But style is also what sells many premium fans, so even the quality options on the market would start to suffer as vanity took hold. For example, while the turn-of-the-century fad would eventually end, a new fan fad started in the 90s where plain ceiling fan blades were replaced with giant leaf-looking things, and you can still buy fans that look like that today. That design is charming, at least to some folks, but it simply doesn't work as well as a traditional fan. That design is far more decorative than it is functional, which is poetic, given that's what put Casablanca on the map in the first place. The resurgent ceiling fans of the late 70s were never sold purely on their merits, and once it became obvious that style was the main thing which sold ceiling fans, manufacturers looked at the race to the bottom they were already in and floored it. Before long, the mass-market ceiling fan pretty much turned to low-effort, barely passable slop. And we are still dealing with that. There are countless options on the market today, but having played around with some vintage fans, it's become quite clear to me that we've pretty much lost the plot. The high-speed setting of almost every ceiling fan I've ever lived with is nowhere near as powerful as this old Emerson fan. So, if you've ever felt that ceiling fans don't seem to really do anything, there's actually some truth to that, beyond their inherent subtlety. They genuinely became much worse when form took precedence to function. And there's what I would call a truly remarkable piece of evidence for this. Remember that ceiling fan from Hunter I showed you earlier? This particular example was made in the late 1970s, but this design traces all the way back to 1906. When Robbins and Myers purchased the Hunter Fan Company in 1949, they just sort of let those guys in Memphis keep on making the same ceiling fan motors they had always been making. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you bet the folks at Hunter smelled opportunity with that turn-of-the-century fad. Here's the installation instructions for the original Hunter old-time ceiling fans. And if you think it's remarkable that a fan from 1906 kept getting made into the 1970s, wait till I tell you they still haven't stopped! This is the Hunter Original, a 120-year-old ceiling fan design which is somehow still in production. There's a bit of a Ship of Theseus situation going on here, since the new Hunter Original in this box doesn't have quite the same motor design due to technical revisions over the years, and plenty of smaller details have changed too. Plus, it's now made in China because of course it is. But Hunter is still using the same cast iron housing, and they are still using an oil bath bearing. Yes, that means this thing needs oil. There are so many reasons that's wild in 2026, but as the box is proud to boast, this is a proven design which stands a very good chance of outliving you. You can probably already tell I am extremely fond of this. It's such a unicorn of a thing. What other machine has been in continuous production for 120 years? But before I fawn over it too much, I want to make sure you know that it takes a certain kind of crazy to buy one of these things. A Hunter Original currently retails for $750, which is quite a lot of money for such a basic fan which weighs enough to be slightly terrifying and needs oiling. But I am that kind of crazy, and this is a fascinating case study of what has happened to ceiling fans over the years. This is a machine which is stuck in time because it respects its purpose. It's not trying to look cool or chase trends. It's not trying to be a cheap option, that's for sure. It's simply trying to be an excellent ceiling fan, and its continued existence proves that at least some people are still willing to pay for that. Let's do an unboxing, shall we? The first thing we're greeted by is the instruction manual, which lets you know right away that you have the option to install either 4 or 5 blades. I really appreciate that Hunter does this, especially since so many actually antique fans with 4 blades are still in service. These things last forever. And before you ask, it's going to perform the same no matter what you choose. The motor produces a constant power output, so adding the 5th blade will just slow it down a little bit as it increases drag, but it's still going to move the same amount of air, though the 5-blade configuration is a little bit quieter. As we keep going, we have the blades, of course, and like many fans, they're reversible with 2 different finishes on each side. Then we have the included bottle of oil, because remember, this thing needs oiling just like it's 1906. You will likely never really need to add oil again once installed, but it comes with a pipe cleaner to check the oil level, which they recommend doing every 5 years. Then there's the included very tiny down rod and hardware to hang the fan. This would be appropriate for standard 8-foot ceilings, but if you've got taller ceilings, you should consider ordering a longer down rod. 2 of the cast iron fan blade brackets are here too, and then there it is. The 37-pound cast iron motor, which makes this the Hunter Original. This is the same exact fan as the vintage one from earlier. The only major differences are that this one is painted brown rather than polished into an antique brass finish, and the blades are attached very differently. The vintage fan has a shaded pole motor, which is not reversible. So to provide a reversing option, Hunter created the Adapt Air mounting system, which does this. Bet you didn't think there were ceiling fans out there with collectives. The current Hunter Original has a much more efficient permanent split capacitor motor, and since this kind of motor is trivial to reverse, it now has a reversing switch. Much less cool, but also much more practical. One quick note I want to make sure I include is that while this fan doesn't come with a light kit, it does come with an adapter ring to fit one on its switch housing if you so desire. This is actually how ceiling fans were traditionally sold. They'd be pre-wired for a light kit, that's why there's a blue wire coming out the top of this thing, but you'd get to choose which light kit you wanted from various options, or to not get one if you didn't need it. In fact, way back in the day, the motor and blades were sold separately, so you were basically building your own fan from a series of options. Too bad the world doesn't work like that anymore. And this motor, while identical in appearance, well, it's now a little harder to say that what you're looking at is the motor itself. The current design actually is an inside-out spinner motor. The windings are now close to the center of the fan, and the rotor surrounds them. It's still a cast iron rotor, and it still has that oil bath bearing, so this is very much an old-fashioned way to build a ceiling fan. But now, it is more like a modern motor which happens to be contained in an antique cast iron housing. This is really apparent from the top, where you can see the stamped steel assembly for the windings. Obviously, the smaller guts mean the cast iron body could be much smaller than it actually is, but I, for one, think it's extremely cool that Hunter has chosen to keep making it exactly like they always have. Except for that vent hole. Why is that hole a circle? That's very irritating. But I'll deal with that, because installing one of these brand new, ancient fans in my bedroom, yes, that does mean I did buy 2 of them, has proven to be somewhat revelatory when it comes to the modern ceiling fan market. This thing is simply a much better ceiling fan than anything else I've ever experienced in my life. Well, except for the vintage one of these. For one, this motor is nearly silent. At high speed, I can detect the faintest bit of 60-cycle hum, but it's completely overwhelmed by the wind noise once the blades are moving. And running at full speed, despite the fact that it makes a whirlwind in the room, the noise it makes is remarkably tame. It might be a touch louder than the extremely ordinary fan it replaced, but certainly not by much. Even more notable to me is that on its medium speed, the fan produces nearly no noise at all. It's just a very faint rustling on medium, and yet it feels like the fastest speed offered by the fan it replaced. Now, feels like is an important thing to call out. I'm going to discuss this more later on, because there's a lot more to a ceiling fan's performance than how much air it can move. But I did buy an anemometer so I could measure wind speed to provide the closest thing to an objective comparison I can. The Kitchler fan I took down, which I'd very much describe as builder grade, was registering about 2.2 meters per second when running at its highest speed setting. This reading was taken at arm's length directly below the fan, and I moved around to find the sweet spot. And what do you know, the Hunter Original also produced about 2.2 meters per second of wind speed, while only running on its medium setting. So not only does it feel like the same thing to me, but the numbers seem to agree. This is especially interesting to me because the Kitchler fan drew about 55 watts from the wall to produce that wind speed, while the Hunter fan was only pulling about 37 watts to do the same. This ancient design would appear to be more energy efficient when providing equivalent performance. Now, it will draw much more power on high. Here it was drawing 85 watts, though I've seen it get as high as 90, probably just due to voltage fluctuations. But of course, when it does that, you also get way more air moving. The sweet spot on high seemed to bounce back and forth between 3.3 and 3.4 meters per second. That's 50% faster wind speed than the Kitchler fan could produce. And best of all, it doesn't seem to be any louder when it does so. Look closely at the fan blades and you'll get a clue as to why this is. It may not come across super well on camera, but the blades of the original are pitched much more aggressively than most ceiling fans. This means they don't need to be moving nearly as fast to push on the same amount of air. As has always been the case, this motor is only designed to rotate at about 200 RPM, but with these sharply angled blades, that results in plenty of air movement. The ceiling fan it replaced also got up to nearly the same rotational speed, but with shallower blades, that just meant it made a similar amount of noise while not being nearly as effective. Another very traditional thing about this fan is how it mounts to the ceiling. While most fans now incorporate some kind of ball and socket joint which allows them to be suspended from angled ceilings, this is using an old-fashioned hook and rubber bushing. That's it. Because this fan is so dang heavy, they really want you to attach this directly to the building structure. But if you know you've got a true ceiling fan box rated to support at least this much weight, that's fine too. Except, despite knowing I had a ceiling fan box, these mounting holes in the bracket didn't line up in my case, so I had to drill an extra one and use a big washer for peace of mind. That was annoying, but I got there. The decorative canopy, which conceals its mount and wiring, attaches directly to the down rod itself and leaves a small gap against the ceiling. This looks a little weird, but it means if the fan is rocking somewhat while it runs, it all moves as one piece, and you don't have any irritating clicking or ticking noises to worry about. This is old-fashioned, but it is truly an excellent fan, and I would say it's genuinely worth its high price. That is, if what you want out of a ceiling fan is extremely good performance. But here's where we get to the very frustrating reality at the bottom of all this. Every single thing about a ceiling fan is not only extremely situational, but also deeply subjective. We all have different priorities, and perhaps you would rather trade performance for something a little more modern. But we probably also don't even agree on what performance means. Every human is going to have a different reaction to a given ceiling fan. Our bodies perspire at different rates, which means the literal cooling power of an identical breeze is different from person to person, and the perceived effect even more so. I can't really tell you what makes a good ceiling fan, because that depends on so many things. And that's a huge part of why ceiling fans have largely gone to crap. It's difficult to be objective, so nobody really tries. Now, we have come up with ways to make objective comparisons between ceiling fan models. But I am now pretty thoroughly convinced, mostly due to my experience with this fan, that those methods don't actually work. Let me explain. If you shop for a ceiling fan, you're going to find that they're given an airflow rating in CFM. That's cubic feet per minute. The EPA, through its Energy Star program, developed a pretty scientific test procedure along with quite the testing rig for doing this. Now, I'm not actually sure whether this is the test procedure done to all ceiling fans, since it's the Federal Trade Commission which is responsible for these Energy Guide labels and not the EPA. Plus, this test is meant for Energy Star certification, which is optional. Regardless, that's not important to the argument I'm about to make. Well, it might be, but more on that later. CFM is something we can measure objectively, and on the surface, it feels like the most apples-to-apples number you could give to a ceiling fan. This thing is, after all, a fan, and moving air is how fans make you feel cool. But a ceiling fan is not a blower fan with a cowl to suck air in from one side and blow it out another, nor is it a squirrel cage fan feeding a duct. It's just a great big fan hanging in the open air, and its purpose isn't to move volumes of air, but to create artificial wind you can feel. Therefore, the velocity of the air once it gets to where you are is what matters to perceived performance. And because we're talking about ceiling fans, you're probably not going to be that close to it all the time. Sure, that testing rig can measure the volume of air flowing through that cylinder, but that's not actually very relevant to what a ceiling fan is trying to do. To be clear, I'm not saying that CFM information isn't potentially useful, and if we look back at those old instructions from Hunter, it's listed there too. So this isn't a new thing, but I am saying that CFM on its own describes less than you'd think. Take a look at this reading from the anemometer. I've placed it a couple of paces back from the ceiling fan, so it's measuring the lateral currents produced after the air bounces off the floor. The reading is hovering around 0.8 meters per second. This is what matters to the subjective experience of a ceiling fan, because that wind speed determines what you're feeling on the ground. And the thing is, if all I do is elevate the anemometer very slightly, the reading is cut in half, and occasionally the airflow nearly stops. Turbulence is going to affect how quickly the air is moving in any particular location, and you can see from the fact that the reading is bouncing around that it's anything but consistent. The effect is even more pronounced when the fan is running at high speed. But what about the stand? Could that be influencing the reading of the anemometer? Perhaps, but that's kind of my point. Obstructions in a room, like the furniture, are going to change the path air takes after a ceiling fan throws it to the floor. And especially since air currents collide with each other, that could increase or decrease the wind speed on its way to you, and thus how effective the ceiling fan seems to be. CFM is irrelevant to those factors. It's not just the stuff in the room either. The shape of the room, the size of the room, and even where the ceiling fan was installed in that room all make significant differences to how it performs. Another huge factor is how close the ceiling fan is to the ceiling. As the sweeping blades push air downward, it has to be replaced by new air from above. And when the blades are right up against the ceiling, the fan can only grab new air through a relatively narrow slot at the edges, and that creates pressure gradients above the fan, which screw up its air distribution. This is why so-called hugger fans, designed for rooms with low ceilings, often don't work that well. In general, the lower the fan can be from the ceiling, the better. Safety standards in the US require the fan blades to be 7 feet off the floor, and with standard 8-foot ceilings, there's not much room to play with, so I get why hugger fans exist. But the test procedure the EPA uses hangs the fan over 3 feet from the ceiling, so the results from that test are not representative of almost anyone's reality. Setting aside all those real-world variables, 2 fans with the same CFM rating can themselves deliver air extremely differently. For instance, these fans, with their simple paddles, are really just producing a column of downward air movement. And that means the fan's diameter is going to affect how tall the lateral currents of air are once it hits the floor and spreads out sideways. A small fan with an identical CFM rating to a large one may not produce a noticeable air current except right down by the floor, which is not very useful if you're looking to install a ceiling fan so you feel a breeze when lying in bed. This is, incidentally, why I think these newfangled fandelier things are extremely silly. The whole point of a ceiling fan is to be big, so you feel it everywhere in a room. That's also why I find sizing guidance based on square footage to be silly. It seems mostly based on perceived visual appropriateness and little else. Go as big as you want, it'll probably work better. But even ceiling fans with identical diameters can distribute air differently because of their blade design. Fans with curved blades or fancy airfoil shapes are like that so they don't just create a column of air below them. Those fans will throw some air out to the sides so that their output can be felt directly over a wider area than the fan's diameter. And that can avoid the issue of obstructions changing the direction of air currents, which may or may not be better depending on your preferences and your situation. This CFM rating does absolutely nothing to explain any of this. Therefore, I am simply not at all convinced that it's enough information to be useful. And even if it were, I am now very convinced that the CFM number on these labels is wrong. Again, all of this is subjective and situational, which I need to acknowledge. But in my previous home, I installed 2 outdoor ceiling fans from Menards, which the Energy Guide label rated 3,911 CFM. Since the Hunter Original is also an outdoor rated fan and its diameter is within 2 inches of those fans, the CFM number should be apples to apples. And since the original is rated 4,620, those Menards fans should have been within spitting distance of this thing, but they were definitely not. I can't go back in time to make a true side-by-side comparison, but I would estimate that the Hunter is at least twice as powerful as those fans were. So not only do I have plenty of logical reasons to doubt that a CFM rating can actually tell you very much, but I also have first-hand experience which contradicts these labels. And it gets worse. The credibility of these labels is also put into question by several basic facts. If you look at the Hunter Original on the Lowe's website, you'll see that they're claiming it moves 6,716 CFM, awfully close to the 7,000 Hunter was claiming back in the 70s. It's almost like it's the same fan or something. So, where does this 4,620 number actually come from? Could it be they're listing the airflow on the medium speed without telling us? That would, after all, line up with typical use, I suppose. Well, perhaps, but that 53 watt figure there, that's awfully strange, and not just because the FTC doesn't seem to know watts aren't energy. My testing, which says this fan runs at between 85 and 90 watts on high, and at less than 40 watts on medium, would seem to imply this fan was tested at a speed which doesn't actually exist. So how on earth am I supposed to trust that CFM number means anything relevant to the fan's real-world performance? But now we've got to talk about why those labels are there in the first place, because even if I had no reason to doubt their accuracy, I think there's a very good case to be made that the motivation behind them is backfiring and defeating the very point of a ceiling fan. Much like the Energy Guide labels on things like refrigerators and water heaters, this is there to encourage you to pick an energy-efficient ceiling fan. Ceiling fans are an energy-consuming appliance after all, and that's why it shows you an estimated cost figure. And look, there are certainly gains to be made there. We've gotten much better at making motors over the years, and that's how the Hunter Original of today only needs 90 watts of power to do what the fan of 1970-something needed 155 watts to do. But we're not actually evaluating the efficiency of ceiling fans based on how efficient their motors are at performing work. We're doing it based on CFM per watt. Now, I understand the logic there. You can put the same motor into all sorts of fan designs, so the finished product matters more than its guts. But since I'm not convinced the CFM number from a test rig describes ceiling fan performance in a useful way, we could very well be making ceiling fans worse at their job by chasing a metric which is effectively meaningless. I think we need to remember we're talking about ceiling fans, folks, They are themselves an efficiency play, and the whole point of their resurgence was to offset the energy use of air conditioning. And in order to actually be successful at that, first and foremost, the ceiling fan needs to be effective in the eyes of the person using it. A fan could have a miraculous CFM per watt figure if it's only drawing 10 watts, but then it might not be powerful enough to actually do anything. And that's the maddening thing here. We know that the relationship between CFM and input power isn't linear. CFM per watt numbers get higher at lower fan speeds, so the metric becomes more impressive the weaker the fan is. Now, Energy Star is aware of this, and that's why the number they give is a weighted average. For instance, this fan model is rated 220 CFM per watt, despite the fact that on its highest speed, which draws 29.5 watts while supposedly delivering 4,053 CFM, the number only works out to 137 CFM per watt. But I don't actually know that its top speed is equivalent to 4,053 CFM because Energy Star doesn't tell you CFM numbers, and the Energy Guide label hasn't specified which speed it's showing you. And the Energy Guide label says the fan only moves 166 CFM per watt, and also that it only uses 24 watts. This whole situation is just royally forked up, but most importantly, performance is the thing which actually matters, and a fan which uses more energy can very well end up saving energy because it does a better job at being a fan. To illustrate this, let's go back to the Hunter versus the Kichler. The 85 watts this fan draws on high does mean the fan uses more energy than the Kichler, which maxes out at 55 watts, ever will. And yeah, that means using the Hunter fan will cost more. But if the Hunter running at 85 watts cools you off more effectively than the Kichler at 55 watts, which it definitely will, then it can buy you a couple extra clicks on your thermostat, which will more than pay for those extra 30 watts, even if you ran the fan 24/7. If spending an extra 30 watts means you can keep a tiny 1 kilowatt air conditioner from running for just an hour a day, you'll have spent an extra 720 watt hours using this, but you'll save 1,000. And don't forget, this has a medium speed too, even a low one, and you don't have to run it 24/7, so it's not always going to use 85 or 90 watts. You simply cannot possibly come up with a single CFM number or a single CFM per watt number for a ceiling fan, and our efforts to try are ignoring that an efficient but weak fan is not actually a useful fan. So are we possibly barking up the wrong tree here? I think there's pretty good evidence that we are. Now look, if you've been watching me for a while, you might already know that my feelings here are complicated. I understand the desire to reduce the amount of energy ceiling fans use, especially since your average Midwestern home probably has 4 or 5 of them these days. But they have to be good at the thing they're supposed to do if we have any hope of them offsetting air conditioning use. If we're creating efficiency targets based around CFM per watt, that may look good on paper, but if it hurts real-world performance, then we're defeating the point of having a ceiling fan in the first place. To be clear, I'm not blaming energy policy alone for making ceiling fans worse. It may play a part, but there are plenty of other pressures pushing us that way too. The race to the bottom is still very much a thing. But I am saying policy may be too focused on the energy needs of the fan itself, and we should probably refine how we're evaluating them, because as of now, it feels like we've lost the plot. And remember, we're talking about ceiling fans. They're not exactly power-hungry things, and never were in the first place. And through our decision to chase diminishing returns, we're creating pressures I'm not super fond of. For example, the Energy Star certified fan we've been looking at has a DC motor, and many of them do these days. Those can be more energy efficient, but that adds a lot of complexity to an otherwise very simple product. DC motors need DC power supplies and motor controllers just to function, which adds 2 electronic devices with potential points of failure. And I do think it's a bit ironic that this Energy Star certified fan has a standby power consumption of 0.3 watts, meaning it's going to use at least 2.6 kilowatt hours of energy every year even if you don't use it. That's fun! There are advantages to a DC motor beyond efficiency, which some shoppers will appreciate. For instance, they don't hum like an AC motor can, and they can offer many more fan speeds without requiring a fancy and potentially persnickety motor controller like you do with an AC motor. Solid-state variable speed fan controls for a fan like this do exist, but they're not easy to come by. Additionally, though it's not my cup of tea, it's easier to incorporate things like smart controls and built-in LED lighting when your ceiling fan has a DC power supply on board. So I get that market pressures are also pushing us in that direction. Regardless, the permanent split capacitor AC induction motors in a typical ceiling fan are still pretty energy efficient, and best of all, they simply get hooked right up to line voltage. They don't have any electronics controlling them other than a capacitor, and thus there are only two things which might go wrong with such a ceiling fan. Either the bearing can fail and the fan will start to get noisy as it spins, or the capacitor can fail, which will cause the fan to spin slowly or perhaps not at all. Barring a catastrophic short in the motor windings, or I guess a failed power switch, that's really all that can go wrong with a traditional ceiling fan. And replacing a failed ceiling fan capacitor is really easy too. In fact, hardware stores stock replacements. There's plenty of merit to the simplicity of an AC motor, and the Hunter Original proves you absolutely can make one which doesn't hum. You just have to, try. This is why I've developed more than a bit of a fascination with the Hunter Original. It's an extremely old ceiling fan design, and yet it seems to be among the best performing ceiling fans out there, at least of the kind you'd typically find in a home. And I mean, while it feels very surprising, given that we live in the age of computer-aided design and advanced modeling of fluid dynamics, in other ways, it's really not. Yes, 1906 was 120 years ago, but it's not like we didn't know how to experiment back then. And we definitely wanted to get the most out of a very expensive motor. 4 plain rectangular paddles might seem like a very low-effort design, but it clearly works, and a lot better than every ordinary ceiling fan I've ever lived with. Ceiling fans essentially didn't change at all between when this thing was first designed and the resurgence of the 1970s. We just figured them out. That's how you make a ceiling fan which is good. Other than Emerson switching to a cheaper motor, which allowed them to leverage economies of scale and shut down a production line, the fundamentals remained exactly the same, right up until manufacturing went overseas. And that's what's tricky about this story. The purpose of a ceiling fan changed when it came back into fashion. Performance didn't matter as much now that they were meant to help your air conditioner and not provide cooling on their own. And that created affordances for cost cutting without significant consequence. Cost-cut ceiling fans, in turn, created competition based on retail price. And then, once every big box store had their own line of cheap ceiling fans, that created competition based on style. And then, once everybody was copying each other, that created competition based on gimmicks like remote controls and, these days, Alexa integration. After several rounds of this nonsense, we sort of forgot what makes a good ceiling fan in the first place. And all that complexity is before we get to the energy standards, which I would have no problem with at all if I were convinced we were measuring performance of a ceiling fan correctly. Which I'm not. And the fact that Hunter still produces this ancient thing in 2026 is the main reason I feel that way. Its existence is no means hard evidence of anything. A cast iron motor housing and an oil bath bearing are certainly not necessary for a well-performing ceiling fan. Anyone could copy this fan's performance for a much lower price. All you need is a motor which is equally strong and fan blades with the same specification. Now that's not hard to come by. But the enduring existence of this design proves there are enough people out there who believe function matters over form and are still willing to pay for it. This thing's sales are helped, no doubt, by its timeless appearance. But asking someone to check the oil in their ceiling fan every 5 years with a pipe cleaner would certainly be a bridge too far for anyone who doesn't really care about ceiling fans. I suppose that's the rub, isn't it? Many people care enough to have one, and many people care what it looks like, but the ceiling fan as a concept is so simple that it's hard to believe there's more to it than that. I didn't until I met someone who collects these things, and now, unfortunately, I've been cursed with knowledge of what's been lost. I believe The Good Place has taught us that the Hunter original is the ice cream of ceiling fans, while the modern ceiling fan is much like frozen yogurt. As Michael said, there's something so human about taking something great and ruining it a little so you can have more of it. That's pretty much what happened with ceiling fans. It's not all bad news, though. While most of the fans you can find in a home improvement store these days are pretty meh, premium ceiling fan brands now exist, and I'm sure many of them made by the likes of big-ass fans are great. It's just kind of a shame what things look like today. Everyone who's got experience with ceiling fans probably has complaints about them too. I know I've had my fair share of them, which rocked just enough to make some kind of a ticking noise which wouldn't go away, or which had a loud motor buzzing away all night, or which was weak and useless. But those complaints really come from how much we've lowered our standards in the name of more. Still, I'd rather have a landscape where average folks can afford a ceiling fan in every bedroom and living space they spend time in, and fans which don't need oiling. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's not like the Hunter original represents the only way to make a good ceiling fan. But its endurance makes a pretty